So he does fun stuff like that every time. Some of them are pushing the limit. Floaters was one that was pushing the limit, very enjoyable. If you want to watch a council meeting without listening to 4 hours and falling asleep, it's a good way to do it. So, anybody have questions while we're here that I can answer or Brittany can answer? Yes, Brian. Okay, so I try and predict how long these meetings last. This one is predicted at 10. For me, the staff takes bets, and there's a Yoda that the winning staff member gets to have in their office for being the wise one. Now, tonight's agenda, in theory, if everyone was really prepared and we were all on our game, would last an hour. Council likes to make sure sometimes that people understand why we're doing things, so that doubles the time. And then you add elections in, and then people want to share more information. And so tonight should be 1 hour. In a normal thing, a more normal time might be 2 hours, probably be 3-ish. Now, I would like to see Kim Rodella come in. She was the council member that came in with that little swoopy introduction as she came into the room on the 2-Minute Tuesday. So I think we should demand that she do that entrance again. Right? Everybody support that? Kim Rodella. The audience requests you do your grand entrance like last week. You're supposed to do your grand entrance like last week. There we go. All right. We are waiting. I see one key staff member to go. Kurt is not here, but he's surely parking and coming. So we're going to start late. My apologies. But there were some important things we needed to do. So council could understand decisions are going to be asked to make. So council, we made them watch a 2-Minute Tuesday from last week. That was fun, and they all liked Kim's entrance. And they liked Aaron trying to escape the video at the end. And we're waiting for Councilmember Kurt and our city administrator, Nathan Crane. I did see Nathan in the hallway. And Councilmember Balls. So they were both at the meeting. So when we start the meeting, there'll be unscheduled public appearances at first. So that's if you want to speak to any item that's not on the agenda as a public hearing, that's your time to get up and talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. We will be making an adjustment to the agenda. The Run Club discussion, which was at the end of the meeting, we're going to not make you suffer and stay through to the bitter end, although that was tempting, to make you understand what council does. We're going to shift that to the front end of the meeting with council's approval. So council, there was a request to do the Run Club
I would
discussion.
move that we move that discussion item on the Run Club to the beginning of the meeting.
Okay. I'll second it.
So moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
My vote doesn't count, so it passes 4-0.
You bet.
So we're going to start. We're going to ask Councilmember Kurt Osler to give our invocation, And then if Tinball is not here at the end, we're going to have Councilmember Smith lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Heavenly Father, as we come before you today here at this council meeting, we're indeed thankful for the moisture which we're receiving outside. We're thankful for the freedoms which we have in our country that we're able to participate in. And at this time, we ask a blessing to be upon our military and those residents of Afghanistan that might be going through turmoil in their life. We ask you please be with them. Also, we ask a blessing to be upon our community at this time as those who might be struggling or suffering, that they also might be as a community, that we might be able to reach out to them. Be with us as a council tonight as the items that are discussed, that we might be able to have our minds enlightened, that we might be able to think of the different outcomes, the things we're discussing, and that we might also be able to look at the different issues. Be with those who might be discussing tonight or presenting, that they might be able to do so in the manner that they've come prepared to do. And this we say in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise to honor our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so now is the time for unscheduled public appearances. If you have anything you'd like to share with us, you have 3 minutes, and you can use that time as you wish. Come up, state your name, and then let us know what your thoughts are.
I wrote this out so I could stay within the time limit. I'm Ed Gifford. I live at 6163 West, 9600 North. I've been a resident of Highland for 21 years. Before I discuss my concern, I just want to say Highland is a great place to live. I feel both the city elected officials, city volunteers, and city staff to try to do their best for the citizens of Highland. I served on the Highland Water Advisory Board for about 14 years until 2017, so I know a little bit of the workings in this city. The reason I'm here is to express several concerns on the current condition of the east side of 6800 West Street from 9450 North to 9550 North. That's the road that goes down to Costco. You know, some people refer to that if they don't have a mental picture where 6800 West is. I believe this section of street may not survive a hard winter, and there are safety issues due to where the traffic travel in the northbound lane. I wanted to make a public declaration about this concern. 2 years ago about this time, I talked to Todd Train, your city engineer, about these concerns. He said that we have a MAG project to rebuild the road in 2020. We just need to maintain it as it is and fix potholes as needed. Last year about this time, I talked to Todd to get a status report because I didn't see any construction. He said, not this year because right-of-way purchases is taking longer than expected. About a month ago, I tried to contact Todd without any response. Eventually, Nathan Crane sent an email response back that Todd didn't work for the city anymore and that there will be no construction this year. I then emailed the mayor and copied Nathan. The mayor responded with information on the right-of-way status, but no answer to the current maintenance status. I asked Nathan if he'd meet me and walk the concerned section, which he did about a week ago, last Monday. After doing that, the same response. We just maintain it as it is and fix potholes as needed. So I respectfully ask the mayor and the city council to do 3 things. walk that roadway section. It's about 300 feet. I talked about with your professional staff knowledgeable about street maintenance. Ask their opinion if it is safe and if it will last through a hard winter. Number 2, drive the northbound lane next to the curb to determine its drivability. Observe how most traffic moves to the west to miss the multitude of pothole repairs because of the rough road condition. And 3, ensure that the MAG 6800 West project will be constructed in 2022. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up.
It's Craig Shields. This is, I think, my 5th time here in the last few months. And I first want to start with thanking you all for your service, particularly in a election year. Really want to value you and each of you, what you do. And Dr. Smith particularly, because he's been involved in our issue and with his help on that too. For the record, we live at 9773 Pheasant Drive. We're right adjacent to the city property that the road was constructed on. And once again, I plead that something is going to be done with that lot. I think it was last week's, a group of city employees was there and painted a block of wood fluorescent green and put some marks on the road. The city engineer and Councilman Smith met with our HOA president, and some of us joined in that meeting a few weeks ago, expressing concerns. But otherwise, I'm not sure anything's been done. Any issues are being resolved, and certainly the look and feel of that property hasn't changed. In fact, I was looking tonight, the green fluorescent is blocked by weeds now, so that have grown since then, so can't even see what was happening there. It's an issue for us. We see it daily, live with it. And certainly the dust and the dirt that's there, these winds, it picks it up and shares that with us. So really appreciate anything you can do to accelerate that project and make our living conditions a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jesse Myrick. This is my daughter, Eleanor. I live at 9648 North, 6220 West in Highland, close to Canterbury Park. And we just wanted to advocate for Run Club. I'm sure you're familiar with what Run Club is by now, but just a quick description. Every summer morning, between when school's out and school gets back in, my 2 daughters wake up, and instead of watching cartoons or sleeping in, they get up and we walk to the park that's by our house. And we, for 30 minutes, we run laps around the jogging trail at Canterbury Park. And they have a punch card, and they get popsicles, and they run with their friends, the neighbors in the local area. And it's a great experience, and we love it. The reason why I'm advocating for it is because I understand that there might be an effort to make it so we can't do that anymore. I don't know what rule or policy that we're breaking, at least that I'm aware of. But I believe that we're using the park in the way that it was intended for. The park has a jogging circle built into it. We're neighbors. It's, like I said, it's within walking distance to our house. I think this is what community parks are for, and I think you'll have a couple other people tell you the same thing. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Becky Rasmussen. This is my son, James. We live at 11065 North, 5730 West. We've been residents of Highland for 10 years, and when we moved into this area, we had purchased a home that was older, and it was in great repair on the inside, but it wasn't like having this fantastic curb appeal. And immediately when my children enrolled at Lone Peak High School, we got into a carpool, and the first time my daughter was driven home, the girls made fun of our home and called it the rundown ranch house. And because of the affluency in this community, there are attitudes and prejudices and unkindness, and we've seen the suicide rates be high at Lone Peak High School. And my daughters were so embarrassed, and they felt so ostracized from so many of the kids and the parents in this community that I ended up sending my children to Pleasant Grove High School. And so they weren't accepted on the volleyball team, even though they were incredibly athletic, and they both ended up with D1 full-ride volleyball scholarships. One went to University of North Carolina, and the other's currently playing for University of New Mexico. We tried to give Lone Peak and these schools an opportunity to accept our children, and we really, really struggled. We've found it to be a huge battleground because of some of the challenges that we have here. And James has been a child who hasn't felt confident in sports or wanted to participate in basketball or football or soccer because of the early propensity to get in so many private lessons. And so he was invited to Highland Run Club, and he started attending, and he found community, and he found friendship, and he found motivation. And so when our family took a 5-week trip to Italy this year, he did not want to go because he couldn't stand the thought of falling behind, because he was one slot away from the leaderboard of being one of the top runners this summer. And so we let James stay home so he could continue to run, and we pay taxes so that we can participate in these parks. And James is able to go down the street, and he can run, and there's no fees collected. It seems that freedom of assembly is an important constitutional right that we should protect. And as long as we are all paying our taxes to these recreational sites, I don't understand why I understand that it can be an inconvenience for neighbors to have traffic. However, I can't imagine people not protecting the right to gather and to assemble in public places. And so, James, do you have anything you'd want to share? Okay, thank you for hearing us.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I get your name again, please? I didn't get that.
Becky Rasmussen.
Becky Rasmussen.
Hi, my name is Julie Rockwell. I live at 5822 West, 9600 North, which is around the corner from the Canterbury Park Circle that we have heard some people address in response to the run club that has been happening there this summer. I first would like to say thank you for making that change and putting it on the agenda first thing. I appreciate that. It's a school night and people coming to support. There are a lot of people here in support of this. So I know it was put on the agenda tonight, which is circling around special events permit, if I understand right, that the need for it at Canterbury Park Circle. And so my request is that you help us be clear on this. With the current park and field guidelines that you have posted online, with all of my research that I can find, we are not in violation of any of those rules or regulations. And so in my mind, if you're going to classify this run club as a special event and require a permit, then that kind of opens, in my mind, a can of worms for other events such as family reunions, religious activities, work parties that are held there. So I would hope that as you consider this, that you will weigh lots of options, that you will make sure that the information you gather is correct, both for and with the complaints, that they're factual, and in addition to maybe taking a broad view of what happens at Run Club. Come and see it. Come see it more than once, multiple times, and experience it, see what it's about, and see for yourselves what an awesome community club that it has been and done for a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Feel free to come on the front seat so that it's not so far.
Hi. I just want to offer a view of a neighbor who does not participate in Run Club. So,
excuse me, would you mind stating your name, please?
Sure. My name is Sarah Larson.
Thank
So
you.
I live in the neighborhood where the Run Club started, and in our family we're really active, but running is just not something we enjoy, so we don't do it. And we've watched over the years the Run Club grow. And every time I drive by and I see them, it just makes me smile. Like, I see Jen out there cleaning up trash, walking around with the garbage can and cleaning up afterwards. I see her going to every length to make other neighbors happy and accommodate everyone. But what I see is we live in especially Highland is very LDS, very blocked off by ward boundaries. You don't know people on the other side of the street. You don't know people 3 streets over. You don't know people who don't come to church. And I look at this and I feel like it's the most inclusive thing I've seen in this city. I've seen people from all neighborhoods, all walks of life, all ages. I mean, we have little kids up to, some kids have been running through their teen years. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. I think it would be, when I look at what challenges our kids face in the world today, we face a lot of mental health issues and a lot of physical issues. And I feel like we always try to patch these up in sloppy ways. And I feel like this is such a cool way of bringing a community together, working on our physical health and the additional benefit of the mental health that comes with that. I think that what happens is somebody tries to do something good, and it's an inconvenience to other people, but we have to wait, and we have to look at how it does affect everybody, but I think it's a workable thing. I personally have not seen it since it moved to the other neighborhood, so I can't speak for that, but I'm sure, we're walking frequently, we walk through Mitchell Hollow, I keep eyeing that as, it has great parking, and it has better paths, but I know there's this issue with the canal. I think we could make things work, whether it's in that neighborhood or another neighborhood. It will always be somewhat of an inconvenience, but I really think that this is one of those situations where the benefit outweighs the cost, especially where somebody is doing it, really taking on the responsibility themselves. They're trying to make it work. They're covering the cost. It's not, if it could be safety cones put out along the street or whatever it is, there's always going to be some issue, but I think that something can be done to allow something like this to thrive in our community. So, that's all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cindy Larson. We live at 6192 West Argo Circle here in Highland. We've lived here 16 years and we love Highland. The area that we live in is across from a park. Argo Circle is actually a U shape with the park in the middle, and all the houses are facing the park. Our house is right in the middle of the U. We have a small backyard. We love playing in the park. We have a dog. She's a good dog. She doesn't bother anyone. She does have a bark, but it's only when we're playing with her. I want to just read what I put on our Facebook account for Highland Hills and Sky Estates. Just FYI, everyone with a dog. The Lone Peak Police Department Animal Control Officer, Tamara Shadone, just issued me a warning that my dog cannot be off leash, even when we play Frisbee at 9:30 in the morning in Argo Park. In the future, if I am seen with my dog unleashed past my property line, I will get fined $100. She took my name, address, phone number, and birth date. She asked if Mabel had a visible license and rabies tag, which she did. She asked who our vet was, and she said she would check to see if the tags were indeed current. I asked her if someone had complained about us because Mabel has a loud bark, and she said, no, it is my job to patrol the area, and since there is not a dog park in Highland or Alpine, we have these laws in place. If you have a problem with it, you need to go to a city council meeting to get it resolved. I'm astounded by the whole incident. My neighbor, Mr. Hawk, saw and heard the whole thing, and he feels the same way. In fact, after I got home, he came over and he was astounded as well, because it's joyful. Our dog is joyful. We have a ring. We throw the ring. She gets it around her neck. She runs around. You know, it's our joy. It's our release. I just want to appeal to the council to somehow tweak these rules. I understand. I walk all the time. I see dog poop here and there. I see dogs running all over the place. I get it. I know we need to have some rules or something to take care of all of these dogs. But for heaven's sake, this is just, you know, a joyful, playful time. And I don't see anything wrong with it if an owner is playing right there with their dog. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Danielle Beemant, and I live on 9735 North, 5750 West, and I'm here for Running Club because I am a mom with a lot of kids. I have 10 kids, but actually I take 5 with me to Running Club. My oldest is 16, down to my 4-year-old. They all love it. They make me get out of bed like I'd say it's summer, let's sleep in. They won't miss. They love it. My 4-year-old says Jen's her BFF. I mean, she's awesome, and they love her, and they love to run. My 4-year-old ran 75 miles this summer. My second son, he got the most. I think he got 200 and something. My 9-year-old ran over 100. It's crazy what they're doing, and I've been doing it for 3 years. I take wherever, I'm willing to do it because it's important to me. So I'm a mom that can come, but there's a lot of kids in that circle that come out that their parents don't come, and they're there and we are watching them, and it's awesome. So I know that there are a couple of neighbors that aren't happy about it, but I just wanted to point out a few things. So one thing that I love is that it's free. I don't pay anything for that, and it's open, and those prizes she gives are amazing for the kids, but she makes running fun. I'm trying to be more healthy with my family, so my kids are going to bed earlier, which isn't normal, my teenagers, and they get up and they run, so that's awesome. I also, we try to be careful with driving. I know that, lots of kids, it is scary, but there are kids. It's usually just our kids out there. A lot of parents park in the parking lot across and they walk. Oops, sorry, but sometimes, but when we do park in the circle, we just try to do in the inside. So we're not by any neighbors, and so we don't cause problems. So they were worried about the garbage. The last Thursday we met, I watched the garbage truck come in. When we all parked on the inside and the neighbors that lived there had their carts where they usually are, it got right through just fine. And I wish I would have asked the garbage man if it bothered him, but I didn't do that. But I have asked, those are my friends. That's my neighborhood. I don't live in that circle, but they're all my good friends. And I've asked a lot of them, and most of them don't mind. They love it. And I could give you a list of names if that's something we need to help the cause. And I know part of the problem that's hard for Jen is she's coming a ways from her house, so they want to keep moving it. So the next place they want her to go is even farther. And I feel like she brings a lot of stuff. She brings tables, she has all the cards, there's prizes, water, and I just feel like they keep moving her, for one, and then it's just too much for her to try to go farther. So I know that people think, oh, it's not a big deal, just send her somewhere else, but I think that this is just something we as Highland should realize. It's something that makes Highland unique for me. I love Highland. We've lived here for 17 years, but I think that's what I love about it, is that it is unique. She's brought a special thing together, and my kids, like I said, oldest to youngest, they all come. They've made a lot of good friends, and they enjoy it. So I'm hoping that the City Council will consider allowing us to have it there, because if not, then maybe like someone else said about the rules, because I know other people are using it for work parties where they bring families in and different things. So I just hope that they realize what an awesome thing we have. You can't find this in any other city. There's a lady that came from Lehigh that said, I want to get this in my city. And I said, good luck, find someone like Jen, and then you can. Because if you saw what she did, I don't know there's many willing to do what she's done. But it's because of her passion for running and trying to show these kids how awesome it is and how it can help you. So, thank you.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. So my name is Crystal Lee Cook, and I am at 6229 West, 10830 North in Highland. We have absolutely loved Run Club. We came to advocate for that. I have 5 kids that are currently at home getting ready for bed, so thank you for moving it. They wish they could have been here, but you're a little happy they're not. Anyway, first of all, I just want to say this is a club that's a half hour in the mornings for a little over 2 months. It is not a 9-10 month year-round event. This is a barely takes any time thing that I don't know where the complaints came from, but if we were going to go to that kind of aspect, I could have a lot of complaints being on a public street next to an elementary school that just turned into now a public drop-off. And I could go off on that. But it's a public park paid by public taxes and used by the public. And we all could have complaints about different situations, but it was built for the purpose of gathering people in the community and building unity. And that's what is happening here. It's being used exactly what it was built for. The other thing about this park in particular is that it has a trailer on the outside, but it also has the specific playground in the middle. And my children range from age 10, I have 5, down to age 2. And that park in the middle is so key and pivotal for me to be there, because my 2- and 3-year-old can run to that park and I can watch them and also watch my children walking around and be an active parent in all of my age groups, allowing them to still have that physical activity that's needed. And I don't know if we have another park that allows that access to accommodate for me, I guess, and that's why I'm here to advocate. But that is a park that is specific to that I hope that we can stay there. Also, because we're there, I've been there afterward to help pick up garbage and to clean up, and I really have rarely seen wrappers left behind, but Jen and other parents and myself have been there to clean up after kids and never left messes that I'm aware of to cause issues as far as dirtying the park and not taking care of it also. So, thank you.
My name is Matt Lambert. I live on 9740 North, just outside of Canterbury Park. My wife is the one who started Run Club. She is out, she would be here, she is out at soccer practices right now, so she asked that I come and speak for a minute. This is the most centrally located park for the community that participates in this Run Club. It is free of charge. My wife pays for it out of her own pocket. She spends thousands of dollars every year to finance this Run Club. She gets donations, yes, but she spends all of it out of her own pocket. She does not require a fee from anybody. Highland City, as good as it is, does not offer any athletic opportunities for our youth. We all have to go to Cedar City, American Fork, other places, and pay a premium because we don't live there and because nothing's afforded to us here. We understand, because when we started this club, we started it with the goal of having, maybe 25 kids. We thought that was amazing, that we had actually 25. This year we got it to 320. We moved it off of our block because it did become an inconvenience, and we moved it to Canterbury Park, again, because it's centrally located for the kids who participate in it. We understand that it is an inconvenience. There's no private property that has been damaged. There's no public property that has been damaged. We bring garbage bags every day to pick up our own garbage and leave the park in a better spot than it is when we get there. I understand that There are some who will complain about it, but I think it's about time we give priority to the vocal majority as opposed to the vocal minority. We have already been told by numerous families, if we move this run club to another park, they will not come because they cannot do it. And so who's more important? Is it the kids, or is it the two people who are complaining because they want the park for their own private benefit? We were also told that the residents there in that little area do pay an additional fee every month for an open space. However, on the city website it says, this does not limit the city or Highland residents' rights to enjoy and enjoyment of property. So we have every right to be there, and we are taking care of it better than the residents there. We do not want to move it. It should not be moved. It is the wrong decision to move it. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Richard Henderson, 9728 North Canterbury Park Circle. I'm one of the awful neighbors that's complaining, I guess. These people are friends. I'm glad I heard this, heard what they had to say. I can understand where they're coming from. Parks are amazing, and that's what they're for, is to be used like that. And that's why I moved there. That park was very compelling. All the neighbors that live on the part where parking's an issue and things, we all kind of share the same situation. Some don't want to come, that's fine. But it is a compelling argument that these kids need somewhere to go, and I understand that completely. I guess what I would request, so let me back up. Where it started, and my wife and I thought it was really cool, and that's great. People use the park every day of the week, every single day, okay? And I love it. People come and park there. The pickleball courts made up the traffic a ton, and that's great. Me and my neighbors, we do spend, a modest amount of time keeping that park up, okay? We work with the city. We've done tree work and all this other stuff, and that's fine. We live there. That's what we expect. And I want it used. I don't have any issue at all with that. The issue came to be when, the numbers really started to climb. Several of my neighbors commented to me, and I was asking, what is this thing? What's going on? And, they said, man, this keeps growing. This is going to be, a big deal. And where it kind of pushed me a little farther, I've never really called the city ever to complain about anything. It's not my nature, really, was when in the mornings, I work from home, have for many years, and I was doing my thing, and they were using music and a megaphone there fairly early in the morning. Was it horribly loud? No, not really. But I have to go back to my office to where I can work. Anyway, it does get to be a challenge when it's every morning, almost 5 days a week, I think. And it is tough to find parking. There's a lot of people there. Now, I deal with ward parties. I lend my water and my electricity, and we encourage all that use. That's not the issue. It's just, I think, is there a possibility that something could be done to limit the traffic, the parking? So I had contractors in my house the last 3 weeks, and they had to park a couple times, not every morning, but they had to park a little ways down. So I live directly across from where they do it, okay? And some of the people that spoke here are very close friends of mine, so I just almost walked out of the room. Anyway, if there can be something done, and I didn't even know it was 300. I thought we were looking at 100 or something. But I never go out and count. I don't sit there and watch outside my window. But if it gets to 400, 500, heaven forbid, and it's wonderful. That means a lot of kids are getting exercise. There's something we can do to accommodate everyone. We just suggested to the city, I called her and said, you know, there's a junior high just a couple blocks away, 3 blocks. There's other parks with parking. Or could we limit the numbers just to be reasonable? I think the request was made to park at the church across the street. Anyway, I'm not going to go on any further. That's kind of my piece. We did talk to the other neighbors that are right there, and I don't know who else talked to some, but I mean, there's general concern along those lines. Nobody wants to discourage what they're doing at all. Not a single neighbor that I know. There was concerns about the traffic, about the kids. One of the, I told him I wouldn't use the name, but one of the neighbors was driving out, and a couple of the people, a mom and daughter and a couple others, went out in front of her, and she watched, she had hit her brakes and stuff, and I know that can happen anywhere, but that's when she really changed her opinion on it. So I just, you know, can something be done to limit maybe the number of days a week? I don't know that that helps very much, or go to some place that can accommodate the cars and the people walking around the park. Again, I don't have an issue that the park is used at all. It is a little tough every single morning to have hundreds of people there. I don't think anybody in Highland would love hundreds of people across their street every day, but I understand. I live across from a park, and we do want it used. It's just I was hoping we could make some middle ground, and we made that request, and I thought, you know, maybe we had something, but anyway, I only heard about this meeting today. I didn't know this was even happening. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Lori Ross. I live at 9786 North, 6100 West. I've been there for 21 years, and I'm one of the original people who sat and watched as 20 kids ran around the block every day, and then 30, and then the next year 40, and then 100. My children never have participated, ever. And yeah, was I a little inconvenienced? Absolutely. But I would go out at 8:15 and take my car out of the driveway and park it across the street, because I knew the kids would start at 8:30. I know it was over by 9:05 every day. It was not a problem to me at all. I'm advocating to not move this. I'm advocating because I feel like it is a great community program, and I wrote a letter to Erin, and I don't know if she sent it to everybody, what the Run Club has done for me and my family this year, me and my husband. I hope she sends it to you, because that is what the community is all about. That is what Run Club has done, and that is what Jen has done for this community. And I hope that you guys will see the importance of who it affects, how it affects them, and choose who benefits most. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Sandberg Pletch. I live at 6077 West, 9600 North, Highland, Utah. I am a mother of 6 children, ages 17 to 5. For the past 4 years, we have been truly blessed by Jen Lambert's Herculean effort to imagine, create, spearhead, and advertise and execute Highland Run Club. We love running every morning. We love the sense of friendship and community we feel. We love Jen Lambert and her family for their sacrifice to make this experience possible and to add value to our community. If anyone deserves a Medal of Honor in our community of Highland City, Utah, it is Jen Lambert. If anyone contributes an enormous amount of energy and value to Highland City and its children, it's Jen Lambert. Come and see. My children are able to walk a block away and exercise for 30 minutes every morning during the summer. I'm not always able to take them, but they can walk over, and I love the close proximity. Children create friendships. Moms and dads visit. Dads and moms jog along with their children, or help punch cards, or pick up trash. We cheer each other on. We celebrate each child. We are a Run Club family. If you have never come see the miracle that exists in your community, you are missing out. Jen keeps track of every child and makes a huge milestone poster to track the top runners. Everything is uplifting, positive, supportive, non-competitive. Every child feels loved, encouraged, successful, and cheered on. I have never met anyone with the drive, energy, optimism, and talents as Jen Lambert. She does this out of the goodness of her heart, and the composite and enormous benefits of this club are immeasurable. This year, someone complained and we relocated to a fabulous park close by. The park has been absolutely perfect. We do not cross over anyone's private property. We park at the church. We clean up after ourselves. We walk on a paved path. Children have found a playground to play on for little ones, a pavilion for prizes and water and shade trees. We walk the paved path every day after the children leave to clean up anything left behind. And we truly leave the park cleaner than we have found it. Amazingly, a donor has come forward this year and offered to donate $10,000 for every mile the children run. They will donate $1 for drinking water for children in a third world country. Can you name another service project in Highland City of this size, fueled by the efforts of children and going to bless children? It is simply incredible. The children have worked harder, run faster, and rallied together to reach our 10,000-mile goal. Please do not let one critic, one cynic, one naysayer silence and stop the tremendous benefit, blessing, community unity, and good that Jen Lambert and the entire Run Club community are doing in our fabulous city of Highland. Come join us. Come see miracles in action and history being created as children are awarded and celebrated. And together we will thank God for his goodness that children we have never met will now have access to clean drinking water because our children of Highland City got up early every morning during the summer to run together. Please do your part to see that Highland Run Club stays where it is and continues to exist to benefit children and families for years to come. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Dave Hall. I live in Canterbury Park Circle, directly across from the pavilion where this event holds. I believe there's a little bit of a false narrative that there's people pro-running club and anti-running club, and there's not. Everyone I know is pro-running club. I have 8 kids. My kids are in the running club. I love the running club. I think what Jen has done in putting this together is fabulous. I've been a resident of Highland for about 18 years. I chose Highland because of the large lots, low density, a rural community feel, and really good neighbors. I teach some of the kids of the families in this room. Some of the reason why some of the other families in my neighborhood are not here is because of the hard feelings, backbiting, social media posts that have happened. I didn't know about this meeting until a couple hours ago. When one of those family members reached out and said, Dave, because of my church calling, I can't show up. But you need to have our back. Will you go represent the pro-running club voice for a better location that fits the size of the crowd? I said, I don't have a problem taking a few arrows in the back. I'll be happy to go there and talk. I specifically chose to build my house in Canterbury Park Circle because it was a dead-end neighborhood, no through traffic, a beautiful neighborhood park, wonderful neighbors, privacy, and it felt like a safe place to raise my family, a little bit like Mayberry. It's been that way the entire time that I've lived there. There's been a few small disruptions, like when a city football league started using it for football practice. Sure, there were only about 20 football players on this team. But the parking and the fact that they occupied it every single day of the week, the city came in and said, listen, This is a neighborhood park, and families can't come here and enjoy this because you're taking it up. And they asked that City Football League, with only 20 players, to relocate to a better place. I watched these football players use our trees as restrooms, come knock on our doors and say, my parents forgot to pick me up, can we use your phone? And people speeding in and out of that neighborhood and even parking their cars up on the lawn when they made the players play late at night so that they could light up the field. Again, what was a little bit was fine, but it turned into something that all of a sudden became annoying to the people that were there. We still have the occasional tennis coach giving a private lesson, pick-up basketball games, pickleball games amongst kids, and soccer practices of 5 to 10 people, and nobody cares. The church will have a mix and mingle after church. It's great. It's once every quarter or so. For the last few years, I noticed a bunch of runners on the west side of 6000 West. I thought, that's great. My kids went and joined the running club. I have some friends that live over there. They weren't too happy, but you know what? They didn't want to be the bad guy. Even though one person on the corner would stand out there and tell them, don't cut across my lawn constantly. Again, they endured. Eventually, the running club wore out its welcome in that neighborhood and were asked to find a new location. Hence, they ended up in Canterbury Park Circle. What started out as a great idea that I fully support to this day, what was only 25 people, as stated earlier, has now mushroomed to over 300. And it has overgrown its size for this neighborhood. It's more than 10 times the size of the football team that was told, find a new location. I work from home just like the other gentleman. It's very common for me to be on Zooms at 8 o'clock in the morning while the running club's going on. I can't tell you how many times I have had to apologize in by Zoom because people say, what is that background noise? What is going on? And I'm like, I'm sorry, my window to my office is closed, but there's a lady with a megaphone across the street encouraging everybody to run harder and giving instructions to people. Again, what is an accommodation for one person eventually wears out its welcome. Cars are parked up and down the streets, bumper to bumper, even blocking both of the fire hydrants in our neighborhood. Pictures of this have been taken and have been sent to Aaron, and I'm happy to provide all the pictures to you guys also if you would like them. On Wednesdays, our garbage man arrives around 8 a.m., same time as the run club. Sometimes it's hard to find a spot to put your garbage can because there's so many cars out there. Try to imagine both sides of the street lined with cars, then garbage cans sticking out even farther, garbage man coming down. What if we actually did have a medical emergency where we needed an ambulance in there, a fire truck in there, and it is bottlenecked? It's not safe for us. The running club provides great treats, snacks, every day to the kids in attendance. It fills up the garbage can that they leave at the pavilion. When the family wants to come and use it for a barbecue or something else like that, the garbage can's already full. So they fill up a garbage bag and stack it next to the full garbage bag can. And by the way, we used to have a nice big garbage can there. I know Kim remembers this when I reached out to her. It was replaced with a real small one that you can barely squeeze a tall kitchen garbage bag in, totally inadequate for a park. But once it's full, the next family just stacks their garbage next to it. But they had a barbecue with ribs and hamburgers and stuff like that.
You're well over your 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll wrap this up. Then the neighborhood dogs tear open the garbage cans, and me and Mr. Anderson, yeah, we are out there picking up the trash that wasn't there before this problem happened. In defense of the running club, they do send out emails telling people not to park in our neighborhood. They do put a sign up in the front of the neighborhood asking people not to park in there. And the most I've ever seen parked at the church was 3 cars. They don't care about the signs and the emails. I think the running club's a great idea. I'm fully supportive of it. Mitchell Hollow has a great park with a parking lot and restrooms. Mountain Ridge Junior High has a great location. American Fork Junior High has. If 20 was too much for the football team, surely 100 is too much. But 300? At some point, we have to say, we love you. We're all in favor of it. If there was anyone that was going to be inconvenienced from moving the running club, it's the people who have their kids walk straight across the street. And I would rather my kids go 2 or 3 more blocks to a junior high or Mitchell Hollow to join the running club because it has outgrown our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Taryn Jones. I live at 6050 West, 9740 North. I am Jen Lambert's neighbor, and I've been with her since the very beginning. I am the number cruncher. I tabulate all the miles. I help keep track of milestones. I do the spreadsheets for all the kids. And I'm not a runner. My kids aren't runners. In fact, my 7-year-old didn't even complete the 10-mile milestone. He just came for the donuts on Fun Friday and the Otter Pops. But my daughter, who's 5 years old, goes every day. She completed 10 miles, but she calls running club her people. She loves to go and eat Otter Pops and talk to people. She loves to dance to the music. She loves to be at running club. And I need to advocate for these kids. These kids are amazing kids. I'm not sure about the trash. I apologize if there was an overflow trash. All we have are Otter Pops. We bring our own trash cans. We bring our own trash bags. We have the idea of we pack it in, we pack it out. The kids afterwards, we have kids that go around and they look for all the Otter Pop wrappers that the little ones tend to leave behind. On Fun Fridays, when we do donuts, we take all the donut boxes out with us. We encourage everyone to park at the parking lot at the church. We had people still park, but it was always the inner part of the circle. On those trash days that were in question, trash cans were actually moved over to the side of the park. So I don't know, I know that there was some question that kids were putting trash in the trash cans that were not park designated. So I think that might have been an incident where kids were putting it, but they were right by the park. The cars that we noticed that were parked the wrong way on the circle were not Run Club cars. We took pictures of them and said, hey, these aren't our cars. There was a trailer that was parked by a fire hydrant. We don't bring trailers to Running Club. It's usually minivans. These are amazing kids. They love Running Club. They take care of the park. They take care of the community. They take care of each other. Of the years that we've had Running Club and that it's grown, we haven't had any horrible incidents other than a few skinned knees and a few dropped Otter Pops and some tears on that instance. These kids look out for each other. Yeah, sometimes kids run out into the street, but there's enough moms and strollers walking that loop where they jump out and they grab the kids. I've seen 12-year-olds look out for the younger kids that aren't even their little brothers and sisters. These are good kids, and yeah, we're big. We're growing bigger. But on an average day, we don't have 300 kids show up. It is a lot of kids, but yeah, that's our roster. We just don't have them showing up every single day. It gives these kids somewhere to go. It gives them something to root for. It gives them something to look forward to, and I love it being where it is. So thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Suzanne Worthington, and I live at 6398 West, 10150 North. This is my daughter, Sandrine Koo. And we also submitted written letters to the council, but we want to just take a moment to just kind of address what we've seen as far as some of the concerns that have been mentioned. Jen is aware of the parking being a concern for residents, and she has been very diligent about letting us know as members not to park by the park. And so when we park at the church. My girls usually ride their bikes or walk, and we live, maybe a minute away from another park. But my understanding from Jen, and I know that this is her primary concern, is that moving the run club from Canterbury Park would preclude many of the children that she started this run club for. She wanted to elevate her neighborhood and bless the kids in her neighborhood who may not have parent involvement and cannot make it to a park that is many blocks away, city blocks. I would never send my kids to the junior high, and they're junior high students. I'd never have them ride their bike or walk there. That's ridiculously far. And I know that that is one of her primary concerns, is that the run club stays close for the kids that she really started the run club for, which was to help her neighborhood kids. And if the run club is moved even to Mitchell Hollow, that would be too far for someone who's not 13 to travel. And when I talked to my children about the complaints that were made or that we were aware of, and perhaps many, there may be other things, but they said the same thing, that the kids will go around and pick up trash, that they're very careful about making sure things are left clean and in a good way when they leave. And they want to be good community citizens. The kids want this run club to continue. They are so proud about donating the $11,000 to charity this year. They are so proud of the friendships that they are making. And I just would petition the council to really consider that, the run club is growing, but the kids that this was started for are those right there in that neighborhood. And moving it somewhere farther out of their travel distance would almost eliminate the whole purpose of the run club of even being started in the first place, that those kids are the primary concern, that they have access to the run club without having it be a hardship for them.
Thank you.
Hi, I am Becca Summers, and I live at 9847 North, 6080 West, and my children are part of the original running club group. And since they've had to move, because I do work, so I don't get to take my kids, sorry, my babies haven't been able to go. Even though it's only a block away, I don't feel comfortable sending my 5-year-old and my 3-year-old, which I'm sure you saw them here, to running clubs. So if it was moved, it would be a detriment to my family. A second point I would like to bring to your attention is Highland, that area is zoned R140, and the only reason they get to have their smaller lots is because of that park. So them paying a nominal fee and service to take care of that park is part of why they were able to allow to have those smaller lots. If they did not want that, and I know that's very common in Highland to use that exception as a park to get the smaller lot size, so developers will come in and build houses that are somewhat affordable. But that is an exception that I don't think they get to use, saying that it's their own private park. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Do we have somebody from Youth Council for our Youth City Council presentation for today? I want my dance partner, Cougar, who tolerated me. Just giving you a hard time. Go ahead.
Hello. So tonight I was asked to talk a little bit about my Highland Fling experience. And although I've lived in Highland for 13 years, this was the first year I came to Fling, and it was super awesome. So,
I'm sorry, can you state your name for the record, please?
I'm Camilla Bradshaw.
Thanks, Camilla.
Yeah. So the block party was awesome, and I think that was a super great start to the week, and I thought there was a really great turnout, and it was fun to see the community get back together after such a long break. And I was gone for a lot of the midweek events, but they seemed really awesome. For the chalk party, that was postponed due to air quality, and that will be rescheduled for the spring. The parade I thought was super awesome and fun to get everyone together and to have the local company support and have a lot of Lone Peak kids there, which was super fun. And the kids' crafts on Saturday was super fun, and I thought that was a great time to just like see the cute little kids and interact with them. The shops were super fun, and it was a good time helping at the information booth, just seeing everyone hang out. And the kids zone seemed to really engage the kids, and I thought the scavenger hunt was a super cool idea, as well as the checklists. Seeing the Irish dancers was super cool, and I thought it was awesome that they do the Highland Scottish games. The fireworks were great, and I love that the summer festivals always end with them. I think that's a great idea. Special thanks to the mayor, the city council, Corinne, and many others who helped make it such an awesome event. Thank you.
So I want to just thank you, city council, for being involved. I think your mayor is an awesome leader. He was out there showing everybody how to have a great time, and he inspired even reticent me to get out there and try and have a good time. So I want to thank him personally for that. Good for you. Anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I am Ryan Bartholomew, and just some of those midweek activities that didn't get covered. The horseshoe tournament got a really good turnout of about 20 to 30 people, and that was very enjoyable. The baby show, which we got to see some of the decorations for during the 2-minute Highland video, had a good turnout of about 15 babies and their families, so that one went very successfully. And then the last one that I can think off the top of my head was the disc golf, due to the wind conditions, had to be postponed to the next morning. Most of the players decided to postpone until the next morning, but other than that, it went very successfully.
Yes, and I wish Corinne were here. I would give her a gold star from our last meeting. It was awesome. Anything, council?
I just had so many people comment that this was the best fling they've been to. I mean, your Saturday Kids Zone, that was amazing. My kids didn't even make it to the fireworks. They were so tired from that thing. So well done. The parade was amazing. And yeah, Youth Council and Corinne just really pulled together a great Highland fling this year.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to thank the Youth Council as well as the staff. I thought it was well attended. I was able to go to the Play Day Rodeo, first time ever. They actually had a pretty good turnout. If you remember, I was a little worried about the smoke. They were fully, with all the horses there. I actually was able to go to the garden for the first time, and from my understanding, we moved it from a Saturday to Thursday. Recommend to keep it on Thursday. Every garden I went to had a well turnout. I mean, I was just shocked how many people were going to the 3 different gardens, so I thought that turned out. I actually went to the disc golf, and I think I saw you guys there. It was surprising how many people had signed up, and some were willing to go in the wind, and some wanted to come the next morning hoping the conditions would be better. But I think we had a good turnout to all the different events. I went past the kids' night on Wednesday. I thought it was a great week. The fireworks, I will give an applaud. I thought they were excellent.
Yeah, that kids' night was amazing. I think it was well over 1,000 kids there.
Oh, yeah.
Just over here. It was amazing. And Kids Zone, we took in over $12,000. It cost us 10, so that's a good thing. But $12,000 divided by 20 is a lot of kids.
I'd just like to make a comment too. I wasn't able to stay all day on the Saturday because we had a class reunion that I was involved in the food with that. It was kind of a busy day, but I just was really impressed at how many people were in the park. And I have one little story. There's a lady in our neighborhood who was ready to be induced to have her baby, and she held off her induction so that she could take her kids to the Highland Fling, which I think is pretty amazing. And she had the baby the next morning early, but I thought that was pretty amazing. So I want to say I agree with everything that's been said and appreciate the Youth Council and Corinne and all the tremendous jobs they did.
Yeah, Corinne is fantastic. She did such a great job. I had fun at the art show. Kurt and I got to go to the art show. If none of you have seen Dr. Smith's art, you should check it out. we found yours. So that was a lot of fun. Best fireworks show I think I've ever seen from the city. It was fantastic. And no fires again, right? Totally winning.
Awesome.
Next year I'm driving the truck, I heard.
Brittany, next year you're doing the strongman competition.
I can do both. Multitasking, yes.
So, and we should also thank Miranda, who was Corinne's assistant for this. All right. Next, Aaron, Run Club discussion. And as a discussion, just as an FYI, when we have a discussion item, the council can't make any decisions. We're just discussing.
So Mayor and Council, this item was put on the agenda at the request of a council member and the mayor. I want to echo what has been said. I very much feel like, after listening to the past hour, I very much feel like a bad guy right now, and I'm not trying to be. Staff's goal, staff's job always is to implement policy that council gives us. And when I had the conversation with Jen and asked her to move, it said we need you to move the running club to a different park, it was from our understanding of policy as it stands. I have great respect for what they do. Again, it is not about them, it's about the policy that we as staff are trying to implement from council. I just have some notes. I won't go through everything, but just to kind of organize my thoughts here. And again, that policy might not be perfect, and we might be understanding it differently than what council meant by it, and if so, we are happy to make those adjustments and those corrections. But that's kind of I wanted to take a little bit of a step back from running club and talk about why we got there, where we were. And I will, I had a couple conversations with some members of the running club who said, can you point to me a rule where we're breaking, right? Or, the guidelines that we need to follow. And our policies related to parks are in multiple different documents, and there's not, so the special event permit that we have discussed is not codified anywhere. It's something that we have developed through practice and kind of best practices and looking at what other cities have done, but it's not codified anywhere. It's been on my kind of thinking about to-do list for a few years, and it just has never risen to the top of the list. We as staff absolutely want these parks to be used. We spend a lot of money maintaining them, a lot of staff time. We want them to be used. We also, so these are things we're thinking about, and the fact that we need to treat all groups the same. We recently turned down a council candidate from using that park for a campaign event because that park isn't one that we use for what we call special event permits. And so in the interest of treating everyone the same, we were treating the running club just like other groups. So we have park policies for a number of reasons, right? So, it's never fun to set rules, but as a city we have to for a number of reasons. So the park policies, when we think about these, we're trying to limit our liability as a city, that is a concern. We're trying to limit the impact, I shouldn't say limit the impact, we're trying to consider the impact on the park and the surrounding neighbors. Because, we could have a nice green park that nobody ever uses, and that's a waste of money, a waste of staff time, and a waste of resident money. But you have to balance those needs and balance those considerations. Thinking about parking, thinking about noise, thinking about garbage, thinking about maintenance. Again, I'm not talking about the running club in specific, but just a broader perspective as to why these policies exist. And then how other people can or can't use the park because of a group. And just the fact that we have a variety of parks in our city. I'm trying to remember. I had the count today of how many acres of parks, 100 and something. But all of the parks are different, right? They have different amenities, and which means that they can ultimately handle different uses better than others. So how did we get to the decision of, this probably doesn't fit, the running club in particular doesn't fit Canterbury Circle Park. So I'm gonna try and apply the park policies that we pulled to get to that point. So Canterbury Park Circle is designated as what we call a neighborhood park. So our field use ordinance, our municipal code, goes through and outlines, okay, are you a community park, 1 or 2, or are you a neighborhood park? And that's based on the field size and the parking and the restroom facilities. Based on those criteria in code, Canterbury Park Circle falls under a neighborhood park. In addition, the pavilion is non-rentable, meaning, of course, people can use it, and we want them to use it, but you can't rent it because, again, our parks practice in this case has been there's no parking lot and there's no restrooms, so it's not a rentable pavilion because we intend for it to be more of a neighborhood type park. And then finally, okay, special event permits. Again, this is not codified anywhere, but the typical, how we think of it as staff is what your group is doing a more than normal impact to our city facilities? Or does it somehow impact our city facilities in a way that's going to limit others' use of the facility? So special events we do, I mean, for like 5Ks that are on our roads, really big events, you know, company parties, that type of a thing. But that's kind of the general definition we use as to when you meet the threshold for a special event. And within that special event, there's various levels, right? Some of our largest special events, we require insurance for, or if you're running on our roads, right, if you're in the right-of-way, we require that organization, you know, Timp Half Marathon or whatever, to bring us insurance. The level of event we're talking about with the running club, we wouldn't go to that extent. Essentially, we'd have them fill out an application, give us their plan, and if it's at a park that we as staff feel like our policies say, yes, you can hold this type of an event here, it would be approved. So our special events haven't been allowed at neighborhood parks because of those reasons. So that's kind of the thought process as to how we got here. Again, this was staff trying to apply policy to the best that we felt. We are absolutely open to discussions with the council on that.
So here's some of my thoughts, okay, and they're worth what you paid for it, which isn't very much, but you know, we have in the past, like at Windsor Meadows, for example, invited soccer clubs that had consumed the park for soccer practice. It's a neighborhood park. We invited them to not come there because that's not a reservable field, and so they were getting exclusive use of that for daily and on Saturdays, and traffic was an issue and parking was an issue. So we closed that to the soccer clubs because they were getting exclusive use of the park where it wasn't designed for that. In this case, in looking at Run Club, to be truthful, I haven't visited it, but just thinking about it and looking at the size of the park, they're not asking for exclusive use of the trail. It's a public trail, they're using it, and it's for a relative short period of time. So I wouldn't compare that with a football team or a soccer team getting exclusive use of a portion of the park, right? And they're using the pavilion, but I'm assuming if somebody was there, they would either share it or they'd not use it. Issues I do see with the Run Club are noise. We just passed a noise ordinance that says if you cross these thresholds and you change it from what it normally is to something higher, that's not acceptable. So I don't know, but I would guess a megaphone might exceed we'd have to go out with a sound meter and measure, but I would guess that it might be in violation of that policy. So maybe they could not do that. Parking, you can park on public roads, and I've had this discussion with Chief William a number of times when residents have complained about parking cars in different areas, like around the country club's pool on the west side. It does create a problem for the neighborhood, but it's a public road. Legally, and I don't think Rob, if I'm off base, Rob, tell me, but legally we can't ask people not to park on a public road if they're parked legally. It's just, we can't do that. We do have some rules, I think, around parking like 24 hours or 48 hours in some places, but we can't do that. So this is a difficult issue. Like I can see that I see challenges. I can see some things maybe the Run Club could do differently if they wanted to continue there. to make it, to just be more courteous. And I know they're trying to be very courteous, but, you know, maybe megaphones are helpful, but they don't, they create a problem, and they might even violate an ordinance. So, you know, we've got till next year, because we've got time to sort this out, but that's why it's a discussion and not a decision. But I don't, in my opinion right now, I don't know that we could legally say don't do it, because they're not asking for exclusive use. If people are parking in front of fire hydrants, well, that's a ticket waiting to happen. You know, somebody can call and say, there's a problem here, and the police, if they have time and they're not otherwise occupied, we have a limited number of police. And we have, just as a point of reference, we have the lowest crime rate in Highland Alpine of any city over 10,000 people in the state. And we're usually number 1 or 2. And I clap for Brian, but I also clap for you guys, because it's you guys that make this community a really great place. I think there's a solution in here. I don't know where it lands, but that's my 2 cents, and I'll let council.
I actually went and checked out Run Club. I've seen you guys running for years now on my way to the rec center to run on a treadmill. And I really did want to know, I mean, is this a special event? Does this require a permit? How big is this? Is this, you know, too overwhelming for this park? I went ahead of time to see if this was causing issues with kids crossing the street. I sat there, nobody knew I was coming, to count how many cars were there parked on the street, how many cars were dropping off kids. I counted adults. And according to my notes, I had 8 cars parked there total, all on the inside circle, 4 on one side, 4 on the other. 6 cars dropped off kids. Most kids rode their bikes there or walked there with their parents. I didn't really see a whole lot of traffic. And in fact, I see a lot more traffic at the little park near my house that has absolutely no parking as well, that does, you know, soccer practices all day long, and I'm used to that. I have a park by my house. I counted 54 kids total, and maybe I came on a day that not a lot of kids were showing up, but I kind of likened it to a family reunion. So my question here, and I think it has to do with the special event, I wish we had a solid number of what makes a special event. How many people is too many? Because when you're saying 300 people, yeah, I would say that's too many for that park. But I was counting 54 with 8 cars parked there, and it would definitely not count as a special event when I'm thinking in my mind of a small 5K, no. And so I think that we need some clarification there of what is a special event and what is not, and what is too overwhelming for that neighborhood park and what is not. I mean, it'd be nice to have a number there saying, you got 200 people, move it somewhere else. You have 300 people, you have 25 cars, you know, move it somewhere else. But from what I saw, you know, I looked and everyone was picking up trash. I heard the megaphone, it wasn't that loud. She had it, you know, pretty on a quiet mode. The kids were respectful, they weren't loud, they weren't yelling, and they just ran, and it lasted about 30 minutes, and then once they were done, they were gone. And I stayed for the whole thing and just kind of silently watched. And a really great group of kids, and they're doing a good thing. Would I want it in my neighborhood? Actually, I would. I'd send my kids there as well, and I live by Wimbledon, so I welcome you there. Then I can send my kids there. But I think that's what we need clarification on, is really those numbers for special events. I mean, what is it? How many is too many?
And like I said, we don't have a number. Kind of the rough-ish estimate we use is 100. We start looking, right? Okay, does this now qualify? At 200, you're actually required to get a mass gathering permit from Utah County, and that's something separate from us, dictated by county regulations. But we start looking at around 100, and I mean, granted, some family reunions are going to have more than that, and so we don't make them get a special event permit, but make sure that they're at a pavilion that really can accommodate them. But that's kind of where we start looking to see what is your event. I'd say the difference between, because some things that have been brought up are that park is used by other members of the community for, family reunions or work parties or things like that. Should they have to get a special event permit? And that was a question for me in a lot of ways, because this is still a neighborhood park, right? But I want it used. We as staff want it used. And so kind of what we were thinking is the difference there is that family reunion doesn't happen every day, whereas this does. And I think over time it becomes a concern, a frustration for neighbors. But again, I've been out to the running club many times, and I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, they think I'm a voyeur or something because I take pictures and, part of my job. And some days are worse than others. Some days there's more traffic than others. The one thing of the complaints that we received, the one that I feel is the most applicable to our policies is the parking. As we've talked about, there's garbage issues at every park, unfortunately, and I don't think I can necessarily fully point there. The noise issues, I don't know if it would break the decibel thing, but because it's going to be intermittent, I'm not as concerned about that, and the fact that it is a park, and it's during our non-quiet hours as well. It's the parking that I think is kind of what most drives when staff's looking at this policy. But honestly, it's somewhat of a gray area. I won't disagree with you, Council, especially because we don't have a definition to point to for special event permits right now.
So we have, I don't know, 7 months, at least 8 months before it starts again.
Yeah.
So maybe in that intervening time, staff can draft a policy and then we can review it and over time approve it.
Yeah, and talking with our rental people and our parks people, that was the thought, is can we kind of bring these policies together in some way, right? Make it more clear, more user-friendly, and actually have something written out about what special events means, and make sure council is okay with it, so then staff can then go implement the policy. Right. When I spoke to Jen at the end of the Run Club, August, I guess, she said, I'm not going to do a ton with it until January was her startup, so that was my goal, to get something, done by December so we could kind of work with Jen moving forward.
I would say it sounds like there are so many parents who are willing to jump in and support, and just as I'm looking through the list of problems, it seems like there are so many that we could avoid, even if the Run Club paid for an extra garbage can to be at that park just during the summer months, or if we could arrange for parking at the church. I don't know what that entails with leadership there. If we could have garbage pick up, at 9 o'clock instead of at 8 o'clock or whatever. It just seems like we should regulate running as little as we can, and I'm not a runner. And I don't want to regulate family reunions either. So my vote would be we're not voting. But let's try to find a way to make it work and take into account, the concerns of the neighbors, because that's a lot every day. How many kids on average a day? People kept saying there was 325 total, but how many on an average day?
I guess 80 to 100. I don't know. Is that, from emails and me being out there.
And that's spread out. You have a path around the whole park, and it's not like 80 kids are congregating in one area. It's spread out around the whole park. It's not like a huge party going on. And I can't believe you said that you do not want to regulate running as little. I know, right? I feel like we're friends now.
I'm thinking about joining, actually. You know what, my other thing, though, that I'm just thinking as a civics teacher is, let's teach these kids how to have this program and how to problem solve and take responsibility and clean up after themselves, and it just seems like a thing where they can learn a lot of things, not just running.
So Aaron, and this is for Chief Panton too, the one concern that was brought up, and you brought it up too, is the traffic and the congestion. So I'm hearing from some people it's not so bad, from other people it is bad. And so from a public safety issue, has the fire department been out there and looked at this? If there are too many people parked there, is it a problem if you have to bring in an ambulance or a truck? Because I hear that all the time. about when we design roads, you got to be able to get the fire truck in, you got to be able to turn it around. Has there been any issue with that you're aware of?
We haven't had any issues. It is designed so that a car can be parked.
Posted.
Okay. So you haven't seen a real public safety issue?
No, not that I've seen. We haven't been out there. We haven't had any calls that I'm aware of.
I had
During
a member of the police department go out from a parking standpoint, and he's like, it's busy, but he wasn't overly concerned. So they were fine with it. Some people do park the wrong way. Honestly, I didn't notice the fire hydrants. I can't say whether or not I saw people parked in front of them. Some people do park the wrong way on the road. I was there on a garbage day maybe it was one of their busier days, but it definitely was congested, and watching the garbage truck, so people have to pull their cans out a little further, right, because you can't get in between two cars that are parked there. I think they're workable. It's just, that has been why we've moved these type of events to other parks, is to try and avoid these problems. I'm not saying that we can't work around these problems, we can't find ways to solve those problems, but that's kind of has been why we try to not be at these type of parks for these kind of events.
So just another comment. I sat and listened to all of this carefully. And, as a physician, anything that gets our kids active, I'm 100% for. But at the same time, I was listening for the compelling argument not to move the Run Club. And I didn't hear a little bit of it until the very end, when people said, if you move the Run Club, then our kids won't come because they can't get there quickly, or they can't walk there or ride the bike. Now that seems to be a little bit opposite to the problem that we're talking about, which is too much parking and traffic. So I'm not sure how that fits.
I'll try to speak for Jen. Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard from Jen, her concerns about moving the running club are she's not sure she's going to get the volunteer help that she needs. She relies on people who live close to help her.
So it's a volunteer issue, because I didn't hear that. Okay.
She moved, like some people mentioned, she moved from where she was to somewhere else to try and accommodate, and it's frustrating to then have to move again. And she's worried that if we ask her to move again, and then so the park we recommended for her was Wimbledon, because it's got a parking lot and it has the running path around it that's, turns out it's the same length, so it works for their measurements. But it has a parking lot, right? That's the main point. Anyway, she's worried that when Wimbledon residents start to complain, which they likely will, that we would make her move again. And so because at that point she would have a special event permit, I wouldn't make her move again, because it's been approved at a park that we feel like can handle the use there. It'll be somewhat inconvenient to Wimbledon neighbors, but we feel like we mitigated as much as we can at that point. I can't speak to Jen's volunteers, and I do understand her frustration in moving multiple times. One thing I do want to be clear is Jen did move on her own. I had called her to say, hey, Jen, you might think about moving in the future, like it's starting to get a bit big. And in the interim, she had actually already moved. This was kind of a series over multiple months.
So it sounds like it's a victim of its own success in some ways.
It is in some ways, right? What she's done is so great, and people love it so much that it's gotten really big and is impacting others around it. So, this is a question of, is it so big that it meets these criteria, or are we misunderstanding the criteria as staff?
I think it's a great idea to look at it over the next few months, and I would just make sure that as part of that, we reach out to everybody who lives along that path, because you don't want to be the cause of neighborhood discontent. So I think we should make sure we find out kind of anonymously what the other residents around there think as well. But thank you, Erin. I don't think you're anti-running. I think you've done a great job.
Thank you. And I think one thing that's important to realize is if we do something, if we change something, it might be an adjustment to policy as a whole, right? So this isn't just about running club, just like all the decisions you make, right? It's the city as a whole, it's future events as a whole. So we'll absolutely consider running club while we're doing this, but I think try and think about it as all of our parks, all of the future events that could happen.
And Aaron, that's kind of where I'm probably at is, I understand we're just talking about one park, but I think we need to look across all parks, all usage. I'm not sure moving to Wimbledon really solves the issue. You're saying, okay, we got parking, but I think, here we have some traffic issues. We've got noise. We got the number of individuals. It's a neighborhood park. I think as a council, we need to make some decisions on policies. What type of use should be in our neighborhood parks? We need to be sensitive that those residents are paying a fee. I recognize that somebody, hey, they got some density, but they were also told that that would be a neighborhood localized park. But at the same time, we need to, come back and say, okay, what's our use policy? What is going to be our policy dealing with special use permits? What's our policy for different type of parks? And I think we need to designate. Now, the question comes in on the specific uses. The running club is rights. I'm not sure. They're parking on a street. How do you stop that happening? They're walking on a city trail. How do we stop that from happening? They're playing on a city playground. They're not really reserving something. They're not stopping someone else that comes into the park. And I think that's the concern. The concern's the numbers. I did call out a couple of the residents there in the Candleberry Circle. I hate any time we divide in neighborhoods. And I see this as one of those divisive things. I know that several of your neighbors there, and I looked at, one comment I think you brought up, Kim, I'd welcome it probably to my neighborhood. But my neighborhood's a horseshoe, so we get a lot of people walking around it, but it's a larger horseshoe. And Canterbury Circle, I see it being a little smaller trail area, but maybe that's what's enticing to the walking club because they can see the kids walk while they're there in the park or pavilion. I think we need to come back and visit this use and not just only apply it to the running club, but see as it applies across the board. We have to be fair and neutral on, when you say just being, that we can look across. You brought that up, Aaron, early on, as saying, hey, what's good for the football team has to also apply. Now, they're not using the field. That's what I'm saying. And that's where we get some of the uses that it's unique. How do we really stop it? The one question, I wrote down the concerns was the parking, the traffic concerns, number of individuals, noise, it being a neighborhood park, no bathrooms, which is and then the neighborhood concern. I think we have to take in some of that in consideration as we come up with policies. So thank you.
Any other comments from council? Okay, thank you, those that came, appreciate it.
For future references.
You need to come to this.
It's recorded.
And state your name.
Matt Lambert. So for future reference, when do you guys decide what's on the agenda? I'm new to this because we only heard about it today as well.
The agenda is published typically Thursday. There's a notice that goes out. You can subscribe on our website with Notify Me that you want to see all council agendas. Okay. And then they will get emailed to you when they come. So typically that would be Thursday, sometimes Friday.
Okay, thank you.
The email goes out on Monday, but yes, they get posted on Thursday.
They get posted on Thursday.
Email goes out on Monday, and usually a social media posting as well.
There's the council preview that goes out on Monday typically. But when you do Notify Me, there's also something that comes out.
We don't use Notify Me anymore, Mayor. We just use Everbridge.
Yeah, but when we sign up, it still says Notify Me on the website.
Oh, okay.
I believe it does anyway.
You're very likely correct.
So Aaron, what you're mentioning, Mayor, for any resident wants to know when this is going to be talked about as a special use permit or what our parks policy might be, they're going to have to just keep following the agenda.
So I would just sign up for if you're interested. It's one email a week. You just look at it, or every 2 weeks, sorry. Sometimes every 3. It's small inconvenience to stay informed. It's worth a few minutes of time. Okay. All right. Next agenda item is consent items. A, approval of meeting minutes. B, Planning Commission appointment, Tyler Standerford. He's currently an alternate, and he would be replacing Seth Barris. Final plat approval for Sunrise Farms, Plat A, and resolution stormwater pollution prevention plan, SWPPP fees.
Mayor, I'd like to pull 3D.
Okay. Anybody else want to pull anything to discuss? If not, I would entertain a motion on A, B, and C.
I'll make a motion to approve consent items A, B, and C.
I'll second it.
Motion by Brittany, second by Scott. Tim almost got there. All right, we are ready for a vote.
Or are we voting electronically?
I
Mine
don't
isn't
know.
working.
I wasn't here to set this up. Is it coming up?
It's
Coming up, it is up.
I don't have
Well, I
it.
got waiting for presentation to start.
Hit refresh on or in the upper right, you have to click on the session ID and you have to log in and log out again. So if you want to do a voice vote on this and then do that afterwards.
Let's
up
do
to
a
you
voice
guys.
vote on this, and then in the meantime, everybody else try and see if we can get it work for the next time. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, Scott, item D.
Well, I just had a couple questions about, I don't know if we call this SWIP.
Yes.
Okay, SWIP, okay. So when I looked through this, you said sometimes homeowners take 27 months to build their house. And so is this organization charging $100 a month to inspect that?
Yeah, so what happens, they're required to do an inspection every month for compliance with UPDS, which is the state.
Sure.
So they have to go out every month. And that's what they charge. They charge the city that fee. We don't have very many that go that long, but they can range from that long. If you're doing a parade home, it can be 18 months, sometimes 2 years. Some of the bigger homes can last that long. Sometimes people are just slow because they like to take their time, or for whatever reason, everything's custom. But usually we don't have ones that last that long. Those were two examples that came up fairly recently, where the current fee obviously didn't cover the cost that was incurred.
So do you have a lot of homes going past a year? I mean, because you want to raise the fee to $1,500, which is the 15 months.
Yeah, usually it's right in around that time.
So Nathan, just clarification, the fee is for the a subdivision, not an individual home. Right.
There's both. So there's a fee
Yeah, it
for
talks about
a
both.
subdivision overall.
Right.
And then there's a fee for the individual home. So
Right.
it's right in there.
Okay.
In that time.
So that's where you came, I just wondered where
Right.
you came with that figure.
It's right in that time. So we had Mystic, Mitch, he looked at what he was spending, the amount of time he was spending, and then we looked at the data that we were looking at, and we try to pull some of the ones that went really fast and try to pull some of the ones that, eliminate the ones that went really long. And he looked at recently, we did a much longer look, but he looked at more recent examples, and that's where we got the numbers from. That's what he recommended, and when we met, this was his recommendation on the fees to cover what his costs were.
Okay. So we've been losing money on this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would
Well-
you have an estimate about how much we've been losing as a city?
No, this is fair, the jump has been fairly recently.
Okay.
Where we really have been, the concern has been with the subdivision overall. So we distinguish between horizontal construction and vertical construction. Vertical is the house, and horizontal is the overall subdivision.
Okay,
That's
the infrastructure
where-
and
yeah.
things. Okay.
That's where we haven't charged a fee recently. So that's where we're instituting that.
Okay, I just wanted to understand it a little bit better.
So can I have a question? So just reading down here the fee, so it's $1,500 for a plan review, and then it's jumping to $1,500 per lot. So one home lot would be $1,500. Am I understanding that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so now if we go down, the next one is the new fee of $50 per unit if it's attached family home. So
Correct.
Let me ask, so we have a single family home's $1,500. Let's assume we have 4 attached homes, or, that's only $200. Why are we not charging, a higher fee? Because it seems like that's not proportionate, because that might equal what one building lot is.
Because the development type is different. So if you look at a townhome project, Usually what happens is they come in and they may have 96 units in that project, but if your building is 8 to 12 units per building, and you're pulling the permits for that building one after the other. Like in the Boyer projects, the one pod, we've issued all the permits for that pod. So it's coming, they'll overlap, but you're out there and your inspection for 8 units, it takes you the same amount of time as it would for one. So, so in looking at the time spent, uh-oh, somebody's in trouble. Who are you arresting? Just kidding. Anyways, so if you look at the time spent, right, we can only charge for fees to recoup costs. If you look at the time spent that he was using for that inspection on that site, that's what was fair based on the time that he was spending.
So are we using a basis of where we went and seen, hey, we've done townhomes, this is what equates back to a single-family lot?
Right.
Is that how we're, I mean...
No, so what we're doing is we were saying is, okay, we have this new product because all of our fees and stuff are based on your traditional large lot, single family, right? And we were looking at Blackstone and we were looking at Boyer and we were like, okay, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense to be doing, if you look at the example in the report, if you looked at the first phase of Ridgeview, we have the townhomes, there's 96 in there would be charging $72,000 at $750 a door. You would not be spending $72,000 worth of time on that project, okay?
And I agree, but when you do 96 townhomes, they don't go, they're not going to be putting them all up, all within a certain time period. It could take 18 months to get the 96 townhomes.
Right, so if you look there, when we met with him, we factored that time frame in, and we figured it to be a 12 to 18 month process for those units. As I mentioned, they've pulled all the permits for those, and so they're in process. They're at different stages, but they're in process.
So when you mentioned met with him, was that a building official?
We met with our consultant, Mystic.
Okay.
His name's Mitch. We met with him and went through that.
And he's the one that's come up with the fee as the recommendation then?
Exactly.
So Nathan, on this, what you're saying then is, we can use this right across the street as an example. A counterexample would be a single-family home subdivision that gets developed one home at a time, and there may be lots that are vacant for months or years,
Yep.
right? And they get developed, so you almost have to treat that as an isolated thing, even though maybe 2 or 3 would get developed at the same time, and one inspection would cover it. Over here, they typically build multiple buildings at the same time, right? So they might have 3 buildings going up, and then as that gets close, then they'd put another 2 up. So and the guy going out there is going on the site, right? It's not just the home, it's the site. So an equivalent visit for a single home might cover 8 to 9, maybe 12 of these multifamily units, right?
Buildings, yeah. You may, right.
Could. So
essentially.
It's a difficult problem. It's kind of a math thing.
It's just a different type of development, right, that we haven't seen, and so your fees are different. So you go out and you're going to do, 36 units at once.
Which typically doesn't happen with single-family homes.
That's why, that's the difference.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
So I move the City Council approve the resolution adopting the revised fees for the stormwater pollution prevention plan review and inspections.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, second by Kim. Are we ready with electronic voting, everyone, or is it still not working? Okay, then we'll ditch it for the meeting, and we'll do a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, item 4 is a public hearing, ordinance text amendment guarantee of performance. Is this you, Kelly?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is for Chapter 6 in the development called Guarantee of Performance. A little better understanding of what that is just bonding for public improvements for development. We do bonding to protect the city for any incomplete or inadequate installation of public improvements. Public improvements being just curb, gutter, and sidewalk, landscaping, asphalt, fire hydrants, that sort of thing. So what we do is we have the developer provide an engineer's estimate of those public improvements, and then they're required to bond 110% of that engineering estimate. And that currently for that bond, just to clarify, once all those improvements are completed and the city accepts them as being okay or up to our standards, that bond is released, and then 10% is maintained to just make sure that those improvements stay in place, basically. Currently, the city only accepts cash bonds, which is just one form, cash being in the form of either check or they have to get an improvement deposit account agreement, which is basically the bank agreeing that this amount of money will not be touched and will not be moved. So it stays there until the city gives them permission to release it. Our city attorney pointed out the Utah State Code does state that a municipality shall establish a minimum of 2 acceptable forms of completion assurance, which is that guarantee of performance or a bond. And so the proposed amendment is to include an irrevocable letter of credit as an acceptable form of a bond. That is something that comes from the bank. Basically, the bank agrees to pay seller, which in this case is the city, the full cost once certain conditions are met. Basically, the only time a bank really is willing to do this is when they know that the developer has sufficient funds to be able to cover that cost. And the developer does have to pay the bank in order to get that irrevocable letter of credit. Just makes it so their funds or their money in their account can stay fluid. For this is a public hearing. We did send out appropriate notices for this meeting as a public hearing. We have received no correspondence on the matter. The Planning Commission did hold their public hearing on July 27th, and they recommended approval 5-0. Oh, sorry.
Okay. I will open up the public hearing now.
Okay.
Public hearing open. No, nobody here? Anybody here? Nope. Anybody online? Nope. Okay, public hearing closed. Council or Kelly, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Council?
Mayor, I had a question. This is maybe for Rob. Is there, one of the things when we look at a letter of credit, it's a little different than having cash in the bank. The city takes on a little bit more, to be very open, there is some responsibility, maybe some legal, paperwork. There's also paperwork to make sure that we can pull that money if it's a letter of credit. Is there any way, does the city, can they charge a fee if it's an irrevocable letter of credit, an extra fee versus if it was a cash?
We could charge it on the back end if there's any additional costs in terms of our administration, enforcement. If we have to get me involved or, spend some extra time, we specifically call out that we can charge all costs to the developer or to the whatever funds are escrowed or as part of the letter of credit. On the front end, no, we have a certain amount and it's set by the value of the improvements, and they just offer that to us.
So would both of them have similar legal agreements that they're signing?
Yes, and Andy and I, we've talked about it, we've looked at them, and we work on them to make sure they're protecting the city. One note I will make, and it's just, the language throughout this ordinance talks about bond. Bond is a colloquial term here. We don't actually allow them to actually bond for any of this. A bond is a type of insurance, so we're only allowing cash or a letter of credit. Those are the most city favorable forms of guarantees.
One reason on the letter of credit, I did have a bad experience in business where we had it, The bank did not pay, we sued, it still didn't pay. I mean, and so, and that's why I'm asking some of the legalities. It's not always as simple as we think. If you don't dot the i's, cross the t's, and now mine was dealing with someone overseas, and so, we're also dealing with some of those legalities where we're dealing maybe within the state, it might be a little easier to enforce.
For sure. I have dealt with a letter of credit, and for some reason the bank thought they had to go get permission from the developer before they would release it to the city, and I had to explain that's the exact opposite of what the letter of credit is for. And we had to go back a few times on that, but cash is best, but state law says we have to have two.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? So I found in my neighborhood up in Viewpoint, there's like a lot of like urban myth and legend that go around. And one of them is that when that neighborhood was developed, the city basically like released the developer from the bond before all the work was finished. And I've heard that about like a couple of open space neighborhoods, that they didn't finish all the work but were released from obligation. Is that myth or legend, or is that true?
I don't know.
It's going to be impossible without pulling each individual file. Probably more myth than reality on the ones that I've looked at in the past.
I mean, the more typical case is the developers get angry at the city for not releasing the bond until a long period of time after it. So we'd have to look at the specific records. Usually it's more we hold on to the bonds because we don't like releasing them until the work's done, because it's really hard to get someone to come back and fix work once we don't have any money on them.
Yeah, that's what has been it has been said around my neighborhood, is that they were released from obligation before the work was complete.
Most of that's based around a requirement of only a certain amount of the improvements to open space and trails being required versus all of it.
Got it.
But we can certainly poll Viewpoint and find out.
I'd like to make a motion if that's okay.
It would be awesome. If we were doing stars, you'd get a star.
And that's why I want to.
And Scott, I apologize.
I didn't get my
in
star.
advance that you made motions and I didn't say that. So let me apologize in advance and give you retroactive stars.
But I have more. Okay. I move that the City Council accept the findings and approve the proposed amendment to several sections in Chapter 6, Guarantee of Performance in the Development Code.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Kim, second by Scott. We're going to do roll call vote on this. Brittany?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Next.
Mayor and Council, good to be with you this evening. Have a brief item here for you, for your consideration. Proposed purchase of a digital radar speed sign and trailer. The Lone Peak Police Department does have this type of unit already in their equipment. The mayor asked us to look into the purchase of another unit that would be dedicated exclusively to the city of Highland. So we obtained a quote from the company that provided the previous unit, Traffic Logics, which came in at about $5,900. And we also obtained quotes from some other vendors on the state contract that did come in higher than the $5,900 provided by Traffic Logics. Funding for this purchase of course, wasn't included in the original budget. There's potential that would come from general fund balance or the reserve balances if revenues didn't come in higher than anticipated this year. So we recommend that council discuss this item, determine if it's an appropriate expense that you'd like to move forward with.
So let me just explain my ask.
Yeah.
I did have an ask earlier that wanted this with a photo camera where we could issue warning letters to people that were speeding. Brian really wanted to do it And I had to walk them down and say, no, 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 we don't want to upset residents. I think, am I remembering it wrong? We looked at that option. It's another $12,000. It would have been a $19,000 purchase. So I wasn't willing to go to the mat for that. This, however, we do regularly get a request from residents. Can you put some kind of a warning sign on the street because we're getting a lot of speeding? And anecdotally, we hear from residents when we do that, it does slow down speeding in that area for a time. And you would agree with that, Brian?
I would agree with that assessment, yes.
So right now we have to share one. The police have one. We have to share it between Alpine and Highland. Some things I like to share. This is one I would rather not share. I would rather be able to just, if a need happens, just go do it and not wait for it to get in the shared queue, just in our queue. So the other thing that these have that I don't think we're taking advantage of now is they record the data just like the radar boxes that we're using. The difference is those show what traffic really is. This shows a behavior modified speed, but we can still extract that data and then compare it to maybe the hidden box data that we see, and then have some real data to say, yeah, this does make a difference or not. But getting that data would be useful. So if it's ours, then we can more readily get it and maybe not have to impinge on the police's time.
Mayor, can I ask a question? Who do you anticipate, if Highland City owns this, are you anticipating the police department moving it around, or who do you
anticipate Public Works moving it around?
Oh, our city Public Works moved around, and I would assume the other trailer would still be moved throughout the Alpine and Highland.
It would be a shared resource, yeah. But so if we needed more than that, we could ask for it. Okay. But I'm trying to help Brian here. I tried to stab him in the back with the photo things, and if I had another term, I might actually make that happen, but I don't, so that's a gift.
Once again, this would be stored like in a Highland building, used only specifically inside Highland, right?
Right, correct. Unless somebody asks for it and we're not using it and we say, okay. But they would have to know to ask that we even have it. I don't see that as an issue, but we get enough requests for people to, like on 6,000 West, we put one in there, you did, and you did it pretty quickly, and the chief complainer was Chris Howden, and I don't want to label him as a complainer, just a concerned resident, and I talked to him, and he said, from his perspective, it made a difference, and he was thankful that we put it out there. And it has some residual effect, but it's not forever. So it'd be nice to have it out there.
I'd like to express my support for this because I find when there's and I've seen this on 700 North American Fork, when they have that sign there, I kind of modify my behavior. Yes. So I think a lot of people do modify their behavior, which adds to the safety. And I've had a lot of residents complain to me over the years about the fact that there are just too many speeders and it's more noise and different things. And of course, I have kind of a personal interest in this as we extend Canal Boulevard and complete it through Madison Avenue part across the city. Many of the neighborhoods, including my own, would like to keep the speed down on Canal Boulevard, and I think this is one way to remind people because, it's interesting to be in my backyard and listen to the traffic on Canal Boulevard now. And there are some people that just think it's a speedway. Most people follow the law pretty carefully, but I think having this is a good reminder, and it doesn't tie up a police officer having to kind of stay there on the side of the road, but it does modify behavior. I don't know, I'd like to ask the police chief, do you think they modify behavior?
Well,
I mean, this is all anecdotal. It modifies my behavior, but I don't know if it does anybody else.
It certainly modifies behavior when it's present, and then when we take it away, it gives it about 2 or 3 days, and then things are back to normal. We have a running list that we keep of residents, council member, mayors that request from both cities on where this thing is put, and it's a running list that just keeps getting added to. And we try and pull things off every 2 weeks, but it's a long list. And just in Highland, in the last couple of weeks, we've had 6400 West, Canal Boulevard, 6800 West, 118th North up by, 11800 North, at Caddy Lane, 6000 West again, and it's a continual request to have them there.
Us the ability to do
yeah.
more.
I'm in favor of this also, and I'd love to make a motion if we're ready.
Ready.
Okay. I move that the City Council approve the purchase of the digital radar speed sign and trailer offered by Traffic Logic at a cost not exceed $58.99.
I'll second.
Motion by Kim, second by Brittany. We'll start with Scott.
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Brittany?
Yes.
All right. Next item.
Okay. We'll see if this works. I will provide a brief background for the council, and then Andy will take over and discuss some things with you. As you know, this is the Mitchell Hollow Trail. We've discussed it as part of the Hollows Plat. It's a 0.30 mile trail, which is just over a quarter mile. It was planned with the subdivision as it to go in. We did do a reimbursement agreement with the developer if it was to be constructed. Our original estimate came in at about $167,000. We didn't have the engineering at the time. Obviously, that was quite low. The second estimate came in at $582,000. We all knew that was way too much, primarily due to a lot of retaining walls, a lot of use of fencing and things like that. Third estimate, the trail was rerouted and a lot of the retaining walls were removed. The cost came in at $385,000. You can see in the slide before you which each line item cost for that, for the trail construction. Part of the reason this trail does cost so much is the need to cross wetlands. So we do have a boardwalk. Right now it's proposed at 10 feet wide, and it's about 250 lineal feet, and it cost about almost $82,000. So that's a big expense for a wetland across the trail. With that, so that's the general overview. Annie's been working on some of the project and see if the cost can be reduced, and I'll turn that time over to him to discuss that.
Mayor and Council, so one of the hardest things with these projects is, and let's just back up and let's say not just this trail project, let's just say any of these projects. Mr. Gifford was here tonight talking about, when are we going to get 6800 West going, right? And so if we want to just say in a general sense, one of the hardest things to do with these projects is pull all the loose ends together to actually get them going. Right, and so while I know it's tempting to say we don't have the money, we just ought to wait. In the same sense, I would say maybe we need to look at it and say, well, is there something that we can do that we can cut a few costs so that we can still keep this going? Because as people move in next to the trail, it's going to get more difficult. To build, meaning people are going to finish their lawns or their landscapes. And I know some of this, the hills maybe going to be native, but people are gonna do improvements, and as people do improvements next to it, then that's one more, element that we have to incorporate if we come back and build it. So, spent, you know, a little bit of time brainstorming on what could we do to maybe reduce the cost, because if you look at it right now where we are, there was about 165,000, I'm just general terms, 165,000 in the budget for the trail. We're coming in at about 385, so we're about $220,000 over. $80,000 of that is a split rail fence. You know, so I looked at it and said, well, do we need the split rail fence right now? Another item, you know, that we could maybe save a little money on, we've got the traffic islands on Canal Boulevard. That's, if we look at funding and how we pay for things, you know, where that is in the roadway, I think that we could probably pay for that with some of the roadway funds that we're paying for, and maybe not pay for that. So I don't know that I'm necessarily advocating getting rid of that, but maybe we pay for that with a different funding source. For that element, there's another 20,000. So we've narrowed our gap, you know, from 220 to 120 there. Another item that Nathan noted that's fairly expensive for the length, we've got a 10-foot boardwalk trail. Well, for the section of the wetlands, do we narrow up that boardwalk trail to say 6 feet? I don't have an exact cost estimate on what that would save, but the item is about $80,000. So if we saved, you know, maybe on the order of $30,000 by narrowing that up, maybe we wouldn't quite save that, but you know, 25, 30,000 I think is reasonable. Then you're down to, you know, the $100,000 range that we're over, and it starts to become a little more attainable. You know, and so to me, knowing how hard it is to get it built, and knowing how much harder it is to build things once people live next to it, you know, and change is difficult for all of us. And anytime we come into a project, it represents change. So I hate to see us completely abandon this. You know, if we went to that and we looked at just finding the extra 100,000, we could still build the trail. We'd have a little narrower boardwalk. We might not have the exterior fences that we'd hoped for, but it starts to become something that's maybe a little more within reach. You know, as a minimum, what I would recommend is if we abandoned the wetland crossing altogether and just said we're going to deal with that wetland crossing later. That is down in the hollow, and that's probably the farthest from impacting anyone. If we went through and just made the footprint of the trail, we graded it, we built the basic walls that it takes to have the trail, and had it in there as a just earthen trail, maybe we could put a little bit of base course or gravel on it, we would come in about $20,000 to $25,000 over budget. You know, and at that point, as a minimum, we would at least have the footprint to where those that moved in next to it knew that they were moving into a trail, graded their yards and their landscaping, whatever they were doing, put in their fence, you know, appropriately, you know, and you know, we wouldn't have maybe difficulties with the future residents as they said, boy, I didn't even know there was going to be a trail there. I don't want a trail in my backyard, or whatever the comments might be. So I've looked at it and said, boy, I hate to see us give it up entirely. I'd love to see us do a portion of it. And what I would love to see us do is try to stretch that 100. So we got it paved. We lived with a little narrower boardwalk stretch, but we got that footprint done. I know that there's been some discussion, could we get some MAG funding, you know, and at least in doing any and all that we could do on it, I think it helps our case when we go back to MAG and say, look, we've done all we can do. We'd like to try and get this funding, you know, maybe to get this connectivity or this connectivity. and to put together a mag trail project, you know, where we say we did all that we could do, and this is as much as we can do, and now help us, you know, fill in the rest. You know, maybe, and I talked to Jim Price a little bit today and said, you know, Jim, I've been very successful in the past, you know, in putting together connectivity packages where, you know, we put together a trail package that we make a connection here and a connection here, and they finish, you know, systems, and you know, and got fairly positive feedback from Jim on that. But I know that, you know, Mary, you'd spoken with him too, and I guess I just want us to look at all options, just knowing how difficult it is to really actually get the inertia and get a project going, and so I hate to lose that inertia in total. I recognize money is money and budgets are budgets. We need to make a wise fiscal choice, but I'd love to see us do something short of just stopping entirely, you know, because it is just so difficult to get these going.
I think that's you know, the resident complaints when you build is a valid concern. Andy and I are going to disagree a little bit on this, because when I talked to Jim, one of the points he made was there is a dollar threshold where they won't fund below, like $1 million, $500,000 never, less than $1 million rarely. Okay, so I look at that cost and say, okay, that helps strengthen our case if we go back to MAG and say we want to complete this section of an already approved regionally planned trail. So it's not like a connector to it's a regionally planned trail. It's a regionally planned trail, and Jim said that makes your case good. Having the dollar amount makes your case good. Highland has not asked for trail money in over 10 years. That's good, because they like to make sure that it's distributed. And then we would have to agree to match at 6 2/3%. And that would save us a lot of money. We'd have to wait a year before we knew for sure. So it's not guaranteed, right? And you've lost momentum and created potentially more costs. So it's really up for the council to say, is it worth the risk? To me, paying 6.5% of whatever the amount is, on this section and the whole rest of it to go down to the equestrian center, that connecting to 9600 benefits a lot of our residents that live south, that they now have a way to get all the way up to the Murdoch Canal off of 9600. So I would really like to see that. There will be some issues on the easements that are existing because they're kind of in the wrong place, and they might not be, we might have to pay a little bit more, but if we have MAG money, then we can. We do have easements from 9600 up to Canal Boulevard, or almost Canal Boulevard. So the question is, council, do you want to, build the trail now, take that out of the package that we would go to the to MAG with? Now maybe there's other trail sections that we need to connect within Highland that we could pile on to get to $1 million. I don't know what those are. I don't know that they exist, but they could exist. For me, it's really tempting. It's only a year. Millhaven won't be done within a year. Once the project is approved, we can go back to MAG and say we would like to sign an agreement with you that you'll reimburse us if we build in advance. So we can't do that now, but once the money's approved, we can say, okay, we want to build it starting tomorrow. MAG, will you reimburse us when the funds come in? And MAG is almost always willing to do that. So so to me, it's, do you want to wait a year on the chance of paying 6 3/4% of the total cost versus 100%, and get a whole trail?
And Mayor, if I can chip in, I don't know that we're disagreeing very much, because I agree if we go to MAG with too small of a package, that it's probably not going to get it funded. My thought was, let's see if we can come together with a connectivity package. And even if we don't go all the way to paving the trail, if we've done what we could, we did what we could afford, I think that would help us in this case too, and that's where I was advocating if we just went in and made the basic footprint, but maybe didn't, just went to that $185,000 level where we'd made the footprint, we graded it, so that, those that moved in and those that are adjacent to the trail, the dust sort of settled a little bit, so to speak, and people, we're kind of accepting of the fact that, yeah, the trail's going to be there, and that's where it's going to be, and that's what it's going to look like when it eventually gets finished. I guess I hated to have to start from square one again, and potentially we don't start from square one, but, I was a little bit afraid that...
Well, we have the plan, so we have a design, so that's more than nothing.
So,
Right.
so Andy, as I looked at the presentation in the package, you have it in your, you want to say, a topographical thing that has, like they have a blue area and then there's a darker area to the east. Is the trail on the, like there's a little stream at the bottom, is the trail on the east side or is the blue area the trail?
I'm trying to get to the same thing you're seeing because I can't really see what you're seeing with the colors on the screen, so.
Kurt, I'll answer that for you. So the document that you see before you is the gray was the original alignment.
Yeah.
The blue is the new alignment to respond to some of the concerns that we had.
Okay.
And to try to reduce cost and cut and fill.
Okay, so the blue area is where the trail.
Correct.
So, and most of that is on the east side of the...
It's all on the east side.
Okay, and then that, Andy, you brought up a concern about maybe some of the neighbors' landscaping to go down. Now, the city will own all this area, so really, there shouldn't be any landscape coming down, correct?
There's a couple of lots that you don't see on this attachment 3, and I apologize that I didn't get there, and they're a little northerly. If you go to the attachment 4, there's a little narrow stretch at the end of the red trail on attachment 4 that there's 3 lots that touch it. Even though the city owns the baseline trail area, the lots kind of come down, and that's where the big retaining walls are right there.
Is that where the boardwalk is, or is the boardwalk?
The boardwalk's south of there, so it goes if you're coming off the existing trail in the red on the figure, it was popping up there for a minute. So if you, I don't know where it went, sorry, but if you come off the red section, the existing section, then you've got the very difficult section. Oh, there we go. We got it up there. Then you come off, you've got that 3 lots. So there's 3 lots that touch it right there, and then you go into the boardwalk section, and then you get to the section that the city
So
owns.
the lots on the east, there are already homes there.
Yeah, there are existing
homes there. I'm just worried about the new homes because the homes that are there, and they are what they are,
Right.
and we're going to have to deal with them one way or another.
It's fair to say we will get complaints and it'll be an issue. I would ignore it, right? Because I'd say it's on the plan. It's
Now,
what we're gonna
Mayor,
do.
this has been on our trail plan for a while, correct?
The exact location hasn't, but the fact that there is a trail has been our city trail plan for a long time.
So here's the plan for, what is it, 10250 north all the way down to Canal. Mayor, you mentioned from Canal to 9600. Are there easement issues between that section?
We have easements there, but they don't quite connect the way they should. And so it's going to cost money to fix that.
Okay, so that's...
And MAG would provide, that's part of the advantage of going to MAG is we can get that money.
We're going to have an issue. I mean, no matter what, really, to finish this trail, that's part of the goal of the trail is to finish down to 96. Now,
it's actually the trail
now the
extends
questions.
down to the questioning center.
Now, from 9600 to the question, do we have an easement?
We do not.
So
And
we
we'd have to purchase that, and that's Ron Peck that owns that.
Okay.
The one that we're watering his field. So hopefully he feels like he owes us something.
So, Mayor, if we get down to the question center, there's also, American Fork has a park close to that equestrian center? Is there anything where we're trying to connect trails up? I'm just trying to understand the plan.
American Fork has a trail, an existing trail that connects to the equestrian center today, I believe.
I don't think it's built to their total long-term master plan, but I think they'd have done some
They did
connectivity
something.
there. Yeah.
I remember hearing that horse people were kind of mad because the way they built it didn't work for horses or something, but.
Yeah, I don't know every detail, but I think that it's less than where they hope to be ultimately.
So this comes into my question with MAG. So what criteria, so is the criteria where MAG will fund it? Just so as we're kind of evaluating, hey, do we wait maybe to try to get MAG funding versus trying to look for funding within the city? Is this because this is connecting all the way up to the Murdoch Trail?
It's because this trail segment that we have mapped out is part of their regional trail plan.
Okay.
An existing regional trail plan has this trail in it. So we're building something on their regional trail plan. We're not just connecting another trail to it. It's actually, so Jim said that helps you score well.
So that's that scoring card that you're getting, hey, because it's on our map, it's been on our future map, you're coming in with a plan that we've seen before, and this is where it keeps getting the check marks to help with funding.
Right, and you haven't asked for money in a very long time, okay, good. And a lot of it is going to depend on Annie selling the TAC, because the MAG committee doesn't see it till after TAC puts it together. And the process, the way Jim explained it to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was they talk to the city engineers in the fall, and they say, give us your projects. So this is roads, mostly roads, trails, and let's just give you a list of that. The MAG evaluates them, and then before the city engineers have done any kind of engineering on it, other than conceptual, MAG would come back and say, well, we think these will score well, these won't. And then the cities have a choice of, okay, maybe the MAG staff says this isn't going to score well, but I believe it's really important. I might spend money on it, or I might say, you know what, I'll wait till the project or the county evolves to where this is more important. But then they'll say these things are good, and then the city engineers come back in the spring with more detailed plans about their road projects and trails projects, and then TAC reviews those, and they review each one individually. So sometimes they go visit. With COVID, they were doing Zoom visits, but they visit each one, and then they come back and then they score them. And mostly scoring is fair, although I know I talked to Todd, and sometimes it drove him nuts because people scored their own projects or projects that impacted them in a few cases way differently than everybody else. So he wanted to point out to the MAG staff, hey, there are some problem children here. And he did a good job of that, actually.
So maybe you're explaining, so maybe I didn't understand. So the engineers of the city come present plans, and they kind of do the sales job. I thought the mayors of the cities are the ones that voted and approved the plan.
Yeah, the mayors, so it's just a recommendation. It's kind of like planning commission. They vote, here's how the projects, or how we prioritize all the projects. And then the mayors can adjust those priorities. And I've seen it happen where projects were in a certain order, and then like the most recent one I witnessed was South County cities got together and they killed a project in Lehigh, dropped its priority to get their stuff funded. It happens. So you do have to schmooze, and then so mayors have to schmooze, but it starts with the city.
It sounds like a lot of chip cookies at different meetings. You have to bring a lot of cookies. Or Brittany has to help us out.
I think Brittany should just do it.
Yeah, Brittany would be our ace in the hole. So Andy and Mayor, as you've talked to the Mountain Land Association of Governments, MAG, are you hearing that we're going to score? From what we're hearing, we're going to score well and have a good opportunity to do this. Andy, are you in the same feeling?
Yeah. So let me just give a little bit of perspective on this. So a lot of it is dependent on who else's project looks good, right? So sometimes you have a bucket full of 50 projects, and and sometimes you have a bucket full of 30 projects, so to speak, and so it's a little bit of because there's a fixed dollar amount, right? And so
The trail bucket's different than the road bucket, right?
I'm not sure on that. It used to be mixed, but Jim might have changed it because I've been up on it the last couple of years. But so would MAG staff support this trail and the connectivity? Absolutely. I think that we're 100% in agreement, and I don't think the mayor and I are disagreeing. The only thing I'm probably petitioning for is because I'm the guy that gets to go and talk to the people who don't want the trail in their backyard, plainly stated. But yeah, whether or not you can get funded is really kind of a little bit, yes, you work very hard to prep, but it's also, who else has got their name in the hat, and how does their project look in relation to what you're bringing, plainly stated, because usually, and I think that over the years, MAG staff has done a good job, as the mayor's indicated, as kind of filtering it down before the city spend, a lot of money putting together presentations. But yeah, you're starting, it's the typical funnel. You're starting with this many projects and you start whittling it down. And at this point, we don't know who else is bringing a project. So,
Right.
So that's the element we don't know.
And what you have as a list, you end up with a prioritized list, and then they look at funding, and it gets, in a simplistic view, you just say, here's the dollars we have, and boom, 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 you go down. It ends up being a little bit more complicated than that, because some of the money that MAG is distributing has federal sources, state and local, and the state and local, they have some strings, and so they'll look at a project and say, yeah, this one works for federal dollars, let's fund that. If we have projects, after we've used the federal dollars on the projects that need federal dollars, if there's leftover, then the state will trade us federal dollars at a rate of 85 cents on the dollar. And for projects that that aren't going to need to go through the federal requirements anyway, you actually make money, even losing 15 cents on the dollar, not having to follow federal requirements.
Right. You want your project to be local funded,
right?
If possible. It's a lot simpler. The process is a lot simpler.
So now my question is going to now come back to the Millhaven agreement we have in place. So let's assume, and we're going to do some assumptions here, that we are successful, that here we are in 2 years successful to get the funding from MAG, and maybe it is in 2025, but we could enter into agreement that if we do it, that they'll reimburse us once the funds
Right.
come.
So we would know about the end of next summer.
So the question then comes, in our development agreement, assuming that Millhaven's still in the construction process there at the Hollows, is this something that we, in our agreement, would still be in effect to have them help us develop, build out?
That would be up to them at that point. If they still had, and they were willing to build it, yes.
But right now, they're building the roads, and all their stuff is there.
They're ready to go as soon as, if the council approved funding tonight, for example, that they could go.
Is the main
let's
thing
say-
because they have a street equipment there, like their asphalter and some of their bobcats, and it might be different than what the equipment they'd have for building a home, is what you're mentioning?
Right.
So they're in the infrastructure building mode right now, right? They're building the horizontal infrastructure building.
Is that what our development agreement states, that it would be during the building of their
It
roads?
doesn't state when, doesn't state when. So, we could ask them at that time, but that doesn't mean that they have to.
And what's your estimation of having Millhaven build this at this cost? I understand it's a total guess. If we had to have another subcontractor come in and do this, what type of cost savings do you feel like we're getting by having Millhaven? I mean, Andy, you went through and said, hey, get rid of the 3-rail fence, maybe we can do some of these things. What cost savings are we getting by trying to maneuver to get to the Millhaven developer to do it versus, I mean, it's a fairly large project. I mean, 380 Is that small in bringing guys in to bring in asphalt work? Is that attractive enough? I mean, $1 million would be a much bigger project, and I would assume we'd get some economic scales. What's been some experience in, are we seeing a savings because Millhaven's there?
I think what you're going to see the biggest savings on right now is when you do one of these MAG projects, they're well managed, and I don't mean that in a derogatory. It's a complimentary thing, but you end up spending a lot more money on engineering and on project management and on inspection. Then right now you've got Millhaven, and to my knowledge, and I haven't been, all this got approved before I got here, right? And so I don't know every last detail, but I don't think Millhaven's charging us any money for the engineering. They're not charging us money for the project management, and so I think you're saving that right now. How competitive is Millhaven's bid compared to if I was go to bid it to somebody else? It's probably comparable to what somebody else is going to charge. Maybe a little bit of economy of scale because you're there. But I think I can look you in the eye today and say is, you're saving all that engineering and management that you would spend to come back for MAG. And then when you do those a little bit more stringent projects, your prices are typically a little bit harder because the contractors know when they're building to that higher requirement, they got to do a little bit more. But
yeah, but we're only, and I'm not trying, I know we have to be good stewards of MAG's money, but we're only paying, what is it, 6.75% of that match. And if it was $1 million, you're talking a heck of a lot different costs than putting out the 380.
Yeah. I can't win the cost argument, nor will I even try. For the city financially, if we can get it funded through MAG, much, much better. Issue conceded. I was just hoping we could make the footprint to get halfway there. So
Andy,
yeah.
So can we go back to the red and the white slide? Anyway, what if so we got $165K cap on existing budget, right?
Right.
So what if we said, okay, we'll continue to extend that south, because that's where the problem is.
Build the difficult part.
Build the part that's going to be a problem, not worry about the rest because it's really not a problem.
Right.
And then you might even be able to build the boardwalk, right? But spend $165K and go as far south as you can with it.
That would be great, because then I've got 3 new homeowners that aren't going to be, upset at the city.
Yeah.
Right, because they bought the home, they built the home, the trail was there, right? If you're at that point, I think you just build those 3 lots, and you hold on the boardwalk, maybe see if you can do a little better with the boardwalk, something like that. The rest of it's in city ownership. You've got some residents along there that don't love the trail, probably are a little resigned right now that it's going to happen. Do they get a little more emboldened? Possibly, but it's
maybe they're happy they have a year reprieve, right?
Yeah, might be happy they get a little reprieve for a little while. But I think, that would be great. That would at least make that footprint for those homeowners that it's going to touch them and it's going to affect them. That's great. That's really where I'm coming at is let's do all we can to get as far as we can to have everybody know that, look, this is what you're going to live next to.
Now, could we also build those little islands and maybe use road money to do that?
We could.
Is it more cost efficient to build that while you're building the road, or can you come back later?
Those are typically just built on top of the
asphalt. Built on top of it, okay. So there's no
I can
advantage.
look at that and see.
There's no advantage to doing that.
The reason I gave you the
concurrent
sideways look is just because if we didn't have the pedestrian facilities, do we need them for now?
Because it's really like a bridge to nowhere, because you have these and they're not doing anything for you. And it just begs the question, why did you waste your money?
So Mayor, what homes are we worried about? Because at the very first of the trail, this trail already exists. Now, my understanding, Millhaven was going to move the trail.
Can you go to the slide where it shows the 3 homes?
But I'm saying
the home. Go back to the slide that has the kind of the plot layout. Where you see those. Yeah, and it's those what are those lots? It's the
Yeah,
top three
it's
lots,
lot
right?
31 and 46 and 47. The way the screen is so light, I can't really see what you're looking at, but the mayor knows, I believe.
Presentation.
Let me
So
see.
that map's
my
not, is that map,
computer.
that's not in our presentation, correct?
This is a new exhibit we got today.
Yeah.
So isn't that where Millhaven's
Yeah,
building their
Andy,
path?
why don't you can come up and
I was
point,
gonna say, I'm gonna come up.
and point on our screen.
Yeah.
Pardon, audience.
From my angle, I only see this very faded.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't get that kind of picture.
Andy, would you mind turning the mic around so that at least we record you? Thanks.
Yeah, I apologize. I was just trying to see the TV screen. So yeah, what we're looking at, the difficult lots are lot 31, lot 45, and lot 46. That's where we touch it, and that's the difficult grading
Right, and that's where you
area.
have to do the retaining
That's
walls.
where all the retaining walls are concentrated mostly. And so that way, when you have lot 31, 45, and 46 move in, we've already made the impacts, we've made the footprint there.
So
you
where's
know.
Millhaven building their trail? I mean, because they're having to move the trail.
That's up the north.
That's
That
up
was
north
up
there, and so
yeah,
then we'll just connect how much we can.
Up here, if you will, where my hand
Yeah.
is.
Do you
kinda
think it's that
in
far up?
perspective.
Can you show maybe here where it'd be?
The part that we're talking about building?
Because the trail goes down to right, what we'd call the frog pond, right? Kim?
Yeah,
Or it
the
exists,
frog
it goes,
pond.
or the Kelly property where they have kind of,
So the tight area is right where it's being highlighted.
isn't that our most expensive, where we have to do the
That's-
rockery and all
That's
that?
the most expensive, yes, yeah, it's the
Millhaven
tight
will
area
be
and it's
right
the
up
most
to the front.
expensive.
Could we do
yes.
that for 165, just
Yes.
those three homes?
Oh, yeah, we can do that area.
I think let's just do that for 165. I'm just looking over this list of trying to find different sources of fundings, and I will say one thing. A lot of them are taking away from maintenance. We've got trail maintenance, playground maintenance, replacing trees, and I'm not comfortable starting another capital project when we can't maintain what we already have. I don't want to take away maintenance money to existing projects to build a new one that will require maintenance. And then the other one is taking away money from Mountain Ridge Park, which I believe is a priority that is over this trail. So I think that just going with that 165, taking it, seeing what we can go with it, coming back with MAG, and hopefully, trying to get what we can. And then once we learn, if we get it, if we don't get it, then let's go from there and find other sources of funding and start talking again about it.
And I think that still accomplishes what I was hoping to accomplish, meaning we address those areas where there'll be new move-ins, they'll know what they're moving in against, and as they build their fence, they'll build their fence to the right, height, et cetera, it'll all be there. We can go to MAG and say, look, we only had so much in our budget, we did all we can do, we need some help on the rest.
And I don't want it to cut corners also, like going from 10 feet to 6 feet. I think 10 feet we need. I don't know.
I would agree with you.
I'm a trail person. You
That
gotta
was
have
just
10
the
feet.
boardwalk stretch. I was just trying to come up with ideas for that, since that was such an expensive stretch.
I just
But
like to run with a lot of people on each side of me, so
Yeah.
I like the 10-foot.
Yeah, but I like if we decide, hey, let's take what we have in the budget and let's go build as far as we can build and get the best footprint we can make there, I think that's a great decision.
Let's do that.
It lets us at
So
least,
build for those three homes, and then as long as that doesn't exceed 165, we're good.
yeah, and then, but let me ask a clarifying question. If I can get with Todd and we can figure out how to rough everything in, but except for the boardwalk, and we can get that done for 165, basically get as far as you can get with 165.
Because you're saying maybe kind of just cut a little rough trail with a bobcat.
Yeah, cut it,
and
cut
maybe
it,
even
make
put-
the
if they got
footprint.
gravel down so it comes out of that and it goes into gravel's what you're saying or something like
Yeah,
that?
and get as far as we can get with what we can get, so that there's acceptance there, that the trail's gonna be there, and that we're gonna move forward as we can.
So I just have one question around that. Is it a valid concern to say if we build, for example, from the south up to the boardwalk and rough in a trail? Yeah, okay. I think I can describe it. If we build from the south and rough it in to where the boardwalk would be, people would use that in a roughed-in state, and then they'd get to where the boardwalk should be, and they might continue on, because now you've got a gap on 2 connecting trails.
They might walk through
I think
wetlands.
my view would be, let's not create a problem. Let's just go as far south as we can.
And that's fine too, if that's the feeling of the
The
council.
next question is, now this trail does have a 3-rail fence on the one side. I think the question is, as it starts to come further down, I think we probably need a 3-rail fence because this comes right up the back of some homes. But as it starts to open up into the wetlands, I'm not sure, that we need that 3-rail. Is it, maybe along the wetlands if you're along a boardwalk, but once it goes that and it opens up in that natural area, I'm not sure you need as much.
And we can save
Decide
that for
that.
another time.
And then maybe
because-
we can get MAG to help us, so.
Right. So I think
Yeah.
the 3-rail, I agree that we should include the 3-rail fence on that
area. And
those-
I'm
on that area.
fine building north to south. That addresses my primary concern. And I appreciate the council entertaining my thoughts.
Those are good points, because we've dealt with the residents that aren't.
Improvements are wonderful, and the end results are wonderful, but it's very difficult to have an improvement, in your area and have things change. And
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
A comment and ask some questions here. So one of the questions I had is on this new plan where the trail has been moved farther west, the blue trail.
Yeah.
That was to cut costs, one, but did it also accommodate some of the concerns on those 2 neighborhoods that are farther south?
It did. It helped address, so that the revised plan helped accomplish both. It saved money, and it moved the trail farther away from those homes and those neighborhoods on the east, and kind of got the trail so it was a little bit more off the top of the hill. If you can picture from those homes, the hill kind of starts to round down into the hollow. We were moving it kind of right to the crest of the hill, and it moved it maybe a couple feet lower, and farther away from people's homes.
So it was a compromise for people that didn't really want that trail in their backyard?
We were attempting in that new alignment to address those residents' concerns to the extent that we could.
Yeah. So I'd like to make a comment about this trail. I like the general concept of the trail. I would probably use this trail. The thing I like about it is, one, it connects. Unlike some trails we have in the city that don't really go anywhere, but this one actually connects, hopefully, to the Murdoch Canal Trail, and hopefully someday down to the Equestrian Center, which would be a beautiful trail because it runs through a beautiful conserved area that we were able to get by a compromise with the developer and keep it basically natural. And what a beautiful place. And so I support what's been said today. I choked, though, when I got the budget and said it was almost $400,000, because that's a lot more than we've been putting on trail maintenance for years in the city. And it's hard to explain to people that we're building, putting $400,000 on this trail, which I like the trail, but when we haven't had money to maintain the trails we already have. So I just 100% support the idea of going to MAG. I mean, if we can get them to eventually compensate us for all this is a good, wonderful thing, because MAG came through, actually originally, when the Murdoch Canal Trail came through 10, 11 years ago, they actually wanted the cities to pay for that, and we pushed back at that time when I was on the council, and then they came back and said, okay, MAG will pay for it. And so I think there is some options there. I would support that 100%, but I personally have trouble spending $385,000 on a trail this year when we really have so many trails that need to be maintained that we already have. So the idea about moving this trail as far as we can with the 165 or 176 that we've already approved, I can support that. But I would hope we could just go to MAG as soon as we can with a good plan and hopefully have them pay for this.
The funding cycle starts again this fall, so we'll definitely be putting in for this, we will put in for this. We will do our best for this, and we feel like we'll score high. And I think that this, what we're talking about, still accomplishes, at least what I was hoping to accomplish, which was, ensure that the future residents move in knowing what they're moving in next to, and then that we can go to MAG and say, we did all we could. We did all we could with what we had in our budget, and you know, and we need you to help us pick up from there.
So those larger lots that are up, there's those two cul-de-sacs, and we know the concerns of some of the citizens there, but the 3 lots above those two, where the trail is right behind their property, have they been well aware that this trail is going in? Have they complained? What's been the discussion there?
When I talked to Todd about that, he said that he had talked to them, and you know, that because I was talking to him, hey, can we further reduce the retaining walls in there, you know, and he said he talked to them, and that they were quite passionate about having at least the retaining wall level we're at now. I assume that's for separation, but I personally have not talked to them. Todd represented that he had talked to them, you know, and so I can't really represent what their feelings are, but that's the stretch we're talking about, is that stretch against those properties there, and where it's kind of tight.
And that's what we're talking about doing now, going
yeah, and we're
south.
Probably not, and we you know, we'll make it as far as we can there, going south.
We'll take care of what could be the problem children in the future and what are the problem children today on that, taking care of those properties, right?
Yeah.
The 3.
Yeah, we'll make that impact there and get as far as we can.
So I agree with everything that they've said, but can you just answer me a super quick question? Sure. So this is our trail system.
Yes.
That like the countywide or the other trail system, it's a different map, right? It's not on here. So I just am wondering, when I'm looking at these maps, is everything from that, like the trails, what do they call them? I just lost the word.
You're talking about the regional trail plan?
Yeah, the regional trail plan. Are all of those reflected on our map of trails? Because it looks like some of them are labeled as city trails, but is everything from the regional trail plan on this plan in some way?
And I'm only looking at the exhibit that that you're looking at on the screen, but not every, if you look at the regional network, either for the trails or the roads, not all of those regional facilities are obviously owned by, like as in the, think of the Murdoch Canal Trail, it's basically managed by Utah County. A lot of the regional network elements are owned and managed and maintained by the cities.
Just like the roads that we get funded by.
Yeah, it's just about how the regional network comes together. So the regional trail plan is about how the regional trail plan comes together. Your baseline question is, I think, does our trail plan and the regional trail plan, do they work together?
I just think it would be nice to see them like superimposed on top of each other so that you could see where the regional trails are also, because it's confusing.
Well, they're regional trails in the sense that MAG or the county has agreed this is a really good network and we would support that and fund that, but they're owned by cities. So they're just saying, if you build this, we'll help you build it, because it's like having connectivity between roads. It's why MAG funds like 68,000 or less, because that's
in Canal Boulevard.
Canal Boulevard, right? That was MAG funded, but it impacted Highland, Cedar Hills, AF, and PG.
Yeah, no, and I understand that. When I'm looking at the regional trail plan, I was just wondering if everything from the regional trail plan shows up on
our trail plan.
On our trail map, so that when I'm looking at it, am I looking at a comprehensive plan of the regional trails?
I can't answer that. I don't know if Kelly or Nathan knows, but I honestly can't answer that.
I think if you go to MAG's website, you can look at the trail plan.
Just by looking at their Trans 50 plan with their active transportation,
you can look at
our general plan does. I just went one by one just now, making sure all of them are on there, and they are.
Okay.
Okay, so I have one more quick question. So the red trail that's already there, and then it goes up through Mitchell Hollow Park. It doesn't fully connect to the Murdoch Canal Trail.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Right there.
Yeah, it does.
Right at the north end of.
Right on the north end. Okay, good. Because I thought there was a little strip that went across there. No. Okay, so.
Where it goes under the road.
Would we use, Millhaven's going to kind of adjust that area around 10-200.
Right? The south end of the
park. That was part of the deal
there.
from the last council meeting.
Yep.
Okay, so would any of the MAG money be available to maybe upgrade the pre-existing trail, or would that just be paid from our trail plan?
It's pretty hard to get mag money for.
So they'd only do for new construction?
maintenance. You're mostly gonna get, I mean, if there was a section of this that was woefully deficient for some reason, maybe, we had 300 feet that was 5 feet wide and everything else was 10 feet, we could use some mag money on that, but maintenance elements, usually you can't fund it through mag, I guess, in a general sense.
So they would only help us maybe reimburse for the white or the blue trail on this, which is the white up there.
Yeah.
And then any extension of that trail down to the equestrian park.
Right, you're mostly looking at new construction. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything you're looking kind of
But
where you are
anything
moving forward.
pre-existing, they're not going to, unless we build it with anticipation that they may.
Yeah, and even then, as the mayor said, this 165, we'll probably have a hard time getting any credit for this 165. In a financial sense, what you're going to get is you're going to get the goodwill and the vote of we did all we could, right? So that carries a lot of weight as far as in working with the committee and, when the questions come up, well, why didn't you build further? Why didn't you do it with the subdivision? Well, we did all we could. We had 165 in our budget. It came back at 400. We looked at it and said, well, this is the most difficult section. Let's build that so that it then becomes that much easier,
So they're going to cover the 200 or 250,000 that we.
Well, it's probably more, and as the mayor noted, if you look at the extension, you're looking more like $1 million, and so we're going to go to them and say we want to put forward $1 million project.
Okay.
This is connectivity.
And part of it is we're going to have to reroute some existing easements.
Yeah.
And then buy easements on the Peck property. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea what the costs are, but there'll be costs, aside from the construction cost. And
yes,
we don't know if we're going to need boardwalks or retaining walls or. We just don't know until we look at it further.
Yeah,
but there may be an opportunity, because on the regional trail plan, it does continue north. Maybe within Highland, there's some section that's not complete as well, and that's where you said do a package.
Yeah. I would think that when we put this together, we would want to look at what else is on the regional trail plan and where do we need to make some connections.
Right. So then ask for all of it.
We're missing, 1,000 feet over here, and then this also makes a connection, and try to put together a package that said, if you fund our $1.5 million package, you're going to get these 4 connections,
right?
Out of it, or whatever
it is,
whatever we can come up with to make it show the best, right? And the projects that score really well is when you get a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak.
So Andy, can I ask a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
So Andy, as I'm looking at the map, and we're looking at this retaining wall, so as we come, we have a trail that dead ends. Is the retaining wall going to be on the west side up against the hollow subdivision, or is the retaining wall on the east side? Now, is it going down, or is it up high enough that we have to retain as we walk past it?
So that section, and I haven't spent, the plans weren't that clear, and so I don't have a perfect answer, and Todd was supposed to be here, he was sick, because he's been out there studying it and meeting with the people. So, I'm going to beg a little bit of ignorance, because I wanted to make it out there today, but I was kind of a little bit reliant that, Todd will be here, and he's been out there and he's studied it, and so the way I understand it is that we've got some retaining that we need to do against the homes there on the east. I believe that we have to build up, but I'm not.
It's kind of like more of a support that we're walking, because I think it's the Kelly property that's the next property we're going, and he does go down, like he has this little water feature and things that way, so we're going to build up to support that across that area.
I think that's the way it is, but I was looking at the plans, and they didn't have the contours leveled really well, and I could picture how the hollow dropped off on the west, and kind of had a mental picture, but like I said, my backup got sick, and we told him, well, stay home. We'll talk to it. So.
And do you know where the bridge starts here, or where the wetlands, where we have to bridge across it? Is it right there at that one cul-de-sac back
It's
in?
right where the white starts to pull away from the properties, basically.
So right there?
Yeah, it's right through there, just for like 300 feet. where the line starts to pull away from those properties. Yeah, kind of as you see it go through the green bottom. So as it pulls away from the narrow areas and then goes into that green field, yeah. Right down there in the bottom where it's really dark. Oh, sorry, we passed it. Right where it's really dark, yeah, there. Because the wetlands on an aerial photo are always the really dark areas, just in case you ever wondered that.
So one quick question again. So I think the direction of the council, or what I'm feeling from our discussion, is that we would like the staff to put together a package to present to MAG to fund a trail basically as far down the equestrian park if possible. But we have some easements down to 9600. We don't have any easements south of that, is that correct?
Correct.
So how would you present a whole package if we don't have any easements or a way to build that? Is that kind of like, we'd like to do this, or how do you do that?
So, and this is where I need Rob in case the state law has changed, but trails, last I knew you couldn't condemn for a trail. So trails are a little more tricky because you can ultimately condemn for a roadway. All else fails, right? Nobody wants to condemn, but you can condemn, exercise eminent domain for a roadway. So trails are a little trickier. When you go to MAG and you say we're going to fund this trail, and we're going to come up with this because you're really going to the property owners and you're saying we have this trail. We really want you to work with us, yeah, you have to put your best foot forward to the property owners, and they have to be willing to work with you in that case because you can't eminent domain it.
Yeah, so before you do a package, you'd maybe check with them
right,
first.
You
right?
would.
Yeah.
You would.
Yeah,
but in this case, there's one property owner.
Yeah, south of 96, it's
all
Ron Peck
Peck.
until you get to the equestrian center,
and then it's county.
But the package with MAG is going to score best if you're getting clear to the equestrian center and you're actually making the connection. It's kind of
ideally you would have negotiated with Mr. Peck and
in an ideal world we'll have talked to Ron ahead of time, and he'll have either told us no way, or he'll say, I think this is wonderful. And we haven't had that conversation with him, okay. To know.
So if he says no, and MAG doesn't want to fund, then we would have to probably fund the rest of the trail ourselves.
Or wait till he develops it, and then
come back and do incremental, or wait, right? I mean, that's the other option in a city scenario, because city time often, we have to look at eventually it will connect, and eventually is sometimes a year, and eventually is sometimes 20 years,
So I feel like we're all about on the same page here. I would be ready to make a motion.
I wouldn't oppose a motion. Does anybody?
Can we do something, Nathan, Rob, but can we make a motion to allow an expenditure of up to $167,438?
Oh, 200 and some odd?
No.
100, the initial amount, the $167,438.
And I would constrain that to the properties that we're concerned about.
Yeah, moving south.
Yeah, and then moving south, and asking to minimize costs as much as we can.
Sure.
Is that good enough?
And then put in a request for staff to put a package together for MAG for the funding of the remainder of the trail.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second that if you put in the funding for MAG.
That's great.
Yeah.
Stephanie, are you good with that?
Can I ask a question just on this motion? Is there any concern by staff on the funding? Here we've allocated the funding, but we really don't have do we have a good price on what we're approving with the Hollow subdivision or Mill Haven? Is there need to be better information on what we're actually approving? We got the dollar amount, but we don't have a bid that we're matching it to, is I guess my question.
That's really up to the council. I mean, we will have to sit down with Todd and say, okay, this is how much we go. What can we do for this amount?
And that's, I guess, the
far it
question
goes.
on the motion, do they need to come back and get that approved, or is that up to the staff just to approve?
Well, if we put a top end on it, then
Yeah.
as long as it doesn't exceed that, they don't have to come back to us.
But I guess, do we want to make, you said it has to go through at least all 3 homes, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't require that it go beyond that.
I'm just saying, we want to make sure, because if they only could get 1 home done for 167, we're going, uh-oh.
Yeah. Based on, just a little commentary, based on what we've got from
bid.
Todd, I think we can cover those 3 homes for the 167.
fine.
So,
But we're talking behind the 3 homes. We're talking about going through them here. I think we have to be careful in the minutes.
yeah. Excuse me, it could.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion and a second. Are we ready to vote? Okay, Kim?
Yes.
Tim? Yes. Kurt?
Yes.
Brittany?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay. Next item, mayor and staff communication items. We took care of that at the front end of the meeting. We
No,
just have
Mayor,
future
you're missing-
meeting listed. Anything else?
The American
Oh,
Rescue.
sorry, I wanted, Tyler, I ignored you. No, I've already lost. I just wanted to get out of here. Tyler, you're the ARPA man.
These are guidelines. Yeah.
Nathan's going to win, just so everybody knows. He gets the Yoda. Poor Donna. She lost a half hour ago.
Yeah, and everybody laughed at me when I picked.
Mayor, if you'd like to skip me, I guess that means I have full discretion on spending $2.3 million. Is that?
Absolutely.
Great,
However you
fantastic.
want. Vacation home in Cancun, whatever.
Appreciate the engagement thus far and continuing the conversation with regard to the American Rescue Plan Act allocation to Highland. What you have in front of you here will highlight towards the latter half of this presentation, but that, of course, is what we received from the state yesterday as far as criteria that they're looking for the local state, or excuse me, the local match grant. Okay, so this is that's kind of the second part of what we might be targeting, but as far as our conversation tonight, purpose is to provide you with the latest developments, including those criteria that you have there, and review the potential uses for Highlands funding that you provided feedback and direction on in our last council meeting. By way of review, Highlands total allocation split between the first half received this year and the second half next year totals $2.269 million, almost $2.3 million. Funds must be obligated by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. And the state's grant program has allocated initial $50 million for local matching. So if you'll recall, in the last council meeting, there were a number of good ideas as far as potential uses for this funding that you asked us to research as staff for feasibility. Under park development, Mountain Ridge Park, including all abilities elements, restrooms, drinking fountains, and trash cans. Under water, chlorination, pond bubbling system, pressurized irrigation meters, and they're following our meeting. Their mayor also included the culinary water well, an additional well as an option. As we have reviewed, appreciate Rob's assistance in listening to me over and over and over again on our assessment of the regulatory guidance, and he's been great help with that. With regard to parks spending, there is some support specifically to address negative impacts, negative economic impacts on populations, households, or geographic areas disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Now that's key there. That focus on populations disproportionately impacted. Of course, a park, we would put forth the argument that it promotes healthier living environments and outdoor recreation and socialization to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. A lot of this verbiage is directly from the frequently asked questions and other guidance from the Treasury.
So you're talking about federal guidelines at the moment, not the state.
Thank you, yes, that's correct. With regard to populations or geographic areas disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, there is a lot of deference made to qualified census tracts, which there is none in Highland. So we then look to how could we advance our slides first? How can we fit that qualification? So we would look to potentially establish benefit to people with disabilities who may have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Census data does support the fact that we have members of our community that have disabilities. Based on recent census data, it's estimated 8.5%.
So we're above average.
Correct. And that's specific to Highland area. There's a few other cities grouped in that, but quite a bit of information
we do
broken down with regard to disabilities that might go into how we might plan a park and design that. As Aaron and I have talked with the current plan for Mountain Ridge, if we were to include all abilities focus throughout the playground, that playground is planned at $1.8 million, possibly looking at also really emphasizing ADA-friendly parking facilities might be an angle to take there as well. So there is room to make sure that we're benefiting a population disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, but we'd want to make sure that that theme is running through the design of the park in a whole, not just one element in the corner. We probably run into some issues there.
Hey, Tyler.
Yes.
So we're taking the angle of disabilities for the federal money, right? For the park.
Our opinion is that that would be the best and possibly the only.
Have we also thought of the angle of seniors as well? They've been impacted as well. Pickleball is a very huge sport among the older population, and can we take two stances, or does it have to just be one?
No, certainly. We could identify multiple populations.
I'm just trying to think, can we also include pickleball in that?
That was great thing. In my mind, that's great thinking.
I mean, I think pickleball.
Pickleball is elderly friendly.
Elderly friendly.
Right.
Elderly friendly. Could you also include something like including some kind of an adult fitness component at the park? Like I've seen parks that have like adult pull-up bars or push-up bars or something like around the, can you include like an adult?
For, to benefit a population disproportionately impacted? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like what other ways you can use. I mean, from looking at the criteria, does it seem as if it's anything that we come close to matching?
So now
this is for federal.
So
right.
Now you're going to the state in terms of matching for the grant. That's what.
This is the state.
This is the state's grant matching thing. If we want to jump to that, we can. Is that the next slide?
Almost. With regard to the water projects, the water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure in the initial legislation from the federal government calls out those type of projects very specifically. So any number of those water projects would align with the federal guidelines. There are some requirements to align with EPA programs, but that's pretty common as far as those type of projects. So kind of summing up what we've already said here as far as park development, yes. The park development could certainly qualify, but we must make sure that that we're benefiting populations or portions of our community that we can show we're disproportionately impacted. This also represents a unique funding opportunity for Mountain Ridge Park or other park elements. Water projects certainly would qualify. We do have funding identified through fees and whatnot. But if the council wanted to augment existing planned projects or accelerate those, that's certainly an option. So with regard to the local match grant application, and that's the focus of the handout that you have in front of you, there's the state, there's a committee of 5 individuals, a couple of legislators, the head of the governor's Office of Planning and Budget, Cameron Deal from the League, and the head of the county association. They will score project submissions on 2 categories. One, a general category, which makes up to 75 points of the total 100, and then project-specific categories, depending on where your project fits in. It's up to 25 points. So we've included in this presentation the questions, and you have these on I believe, the second and third page of that handout. The questions that they'll be looking at for first the 75 points. You can see that there's some that we'd have a good chance of scoring high on. The project has a sound plan and budget. That's something we've been discussing, and Aaron's done a lot of great work in establishing that over the course of the conversation with Mountain Ridge Park, if that's where the council wants to go. Leverages other funding sources. Of course, the city has other funding dedicated to that. The question number 2, the project is innovative. There's not a whole lot of definition so far on what the state's looking for in terms of innovation, but that could be subjective. So you see those questions there that they're looking for as far as all projects are going to be scored on that area.
So Tyler, can I just,
you bet,
inject here? So when I looked at this, I looked at the projects that we had on our list, and I wouldn't score any of them high on innovative because they're water meters. Everybody's doing it, right? A well, chlorination, a park. I'm not seeing those as particularly innovative, so I'm assuming we're going to score low there. In terms of other funding sources other than ourselves, I don't know that there's a lot that we can leverage on any of those. I think other communities might have other grants or sources that they can get, and maybe on the park we actually can go out and raise money, but we're not going to be able to say in 3 weeks what that is exactly. So that's 20 points that I don't think we're going to score well on.
The last question, the project is a collaborative effort with multiple entities?
We're not. So what they're looking at there, I believe, is if you're like in South Utah County and in a small city that doesn't have a sewer system, but you want to work with your neighbors to create a sewer system so that everybody can grow. To me, those are the kind of projects that would score well there. So there's 25 points that I don't think we're going to, right off the top, I'm not going to score well. And I'm bringing that up because if there's a low probability that we have for getting this grant, then I wouldn't adjust our project to say, we want to we want to get a grant, so let's do this. To me, it doesn't look like there's a high probability that we'll get a grant. Now, one thing I can do, you have your meeting next week, give a webinar.
Correct.
And I can call Cameron and ask him, just because he's one of the four, is there any way you think Highland would score well given what's out there? Because there are over 200 cities and counties that are also going to be applying for this. A lot of them are rural, a lot of them are small, a lot of them have disadvantaged populations, even impacted, vulnerable populations that have adversely been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, we do have, in terms of the grant, we're not financially disadvantaged compared to other communities, not by a long shot. And most of our population wasn't impacted by COVID in terms of their jobs, because there are high-tech jobs.
And they work from home.
Right.
So unlike other communities that maybe had more hands-on workers or something, but so I think there's 35 points in there that wouldn't.
But shouldn't we still try to give it our best shot?
Right.
Can we just go for one?
Yes.
Or can you, so it's only one that you can go for the local grant? You can't say, okay, we're going to try and go for the Mountain Ridge Park, we're going to go for metering. Can we just go for whatever and see what happens?
That's a good question, and I'll follow up with.
On the 25th, they'll say more?
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think
question.
we should basically just go for, as much as we can, and whatever happens, happens. I don't think it's going to do any good to call Cameron, because, I'll be honest, he's not going to say anything. They have to be very tight-lipped. They have to be.
He specifically said, please don't call him about these, because that would impact your, how he could then score us. So maybe another staffer at the league could give some perspective, but we shouldn't talk to him.
Yeah. So I think we have our list of projects, and then, go for whatever we possibly can, and if we luck out, we luck out. If we don't, we don't.
Right.
Because there's $50 million, right?
Correct. The initial allocation by the legislature.
Okay.
That's a great comment, Councilwoman, and we'll follow up on that. As far as the project-specific categories, public health impact, here we're thinking of course, for the park primarily. Project mitigates COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, deaths, or increases vaccination rates. I don't know that we're going to throw a vaccination fair in the park.
Well, I'll mention this. Utah County has one of the lowest vaccination rates in the nation. And so I don't know if that'll help you with the grant, but.
The only thing I can see with this public health impact, it shows physical or behavioral issues, and I think one of the issues that we are facing in our city is mental health issues of our kids, our teenagers, and how it's impacted them. And the only thing I can see of us going for in this category is doing something like PG City has done with PG Cares to, find funding to provide a mental health programs run by the city. But I think it's hard to do that at last minute.
Yeah. As far as the water projects, there are certainly a number of criteria there I think that we would qualify for. Again, some others that we probably wouldn't get the points on that. So that's what we know so far. As far as the state's criteria, the timeline has not changed. The portal opened up for applications here yesterday. That'll run for approximately 1 month. Before that closes, again on the 25th next week, we'll be participating in the webinar to hopefully get some more information. Their committee will review and evaluate the applications and then report to the league's executive committee on October 19th. And then by November, we should know if we were fortunate enough to receive an award and and funds will be distributed at that time. So we'll certainly keep our ear to the ground and follow up and report back. There in 3 weeks in the next council meeting. At that point, staff will ask if the council wants to decide how to use the funds and if we should apply for the grant. I assume that we'll be applying in whatever form there and give it a shot. But take away from this meeting, would be interested if there's any particular leanings that you have as far as projects. Again, as far as the state is concerned, if we can, I like that idea of applying for more than one project. But come the 7th, we'll have a narrow window, only about a week to apply and finalize those grant applications. So we want to give you the opportunity between now and then to discuss and formulate a decision there by the 7th. So, any other feedback or questions that you have on the information that we've presented tonight?
So we would have to fund that using the ARPA money. Well, to get we'll talk about that, yes. Anything else, council, on this? I was just having a sidebar discussion on local projects. So if we applied for 3 projects, let's say meters, chlorination, and the park, and chlorination, we got a grant for the chlorination, then we would have to use part of our ARPA money to fund that chlorination project in order to get the grant.
That's
which
correct.
means that ARPA money couldn't be used for the park.
Correct.
Right?
After
Or
the
that
spin
portion
on
of it.
things, I see where you're going with the matches, ARPA, okay.
Yeah, the match is 1-to-1.
Yeah. So if, the only number I know for sure is, or not for sure, but it was estimated that a well would cost us 1.7 million. If we submitted for that and got it, then we would need to spend 850,000 of our ARPA money on the well in order to get the match.
Correct.
And then that 850 isn't available for anything else.
That's correct.
Right. So, now, it might be good to do that.
And this is a well for culinary water.
Right.
Okay.
But again, I'm guessing that, so this, now I'm just going to say what my personal opinion is on this. I think our odds on winning any of these grants is really low. 1 to 5% at best. So yes, it wouldn't hurt to apply for them, but if staff time is limited, do you want staff to spend any time on a low probability thing when there are lots of things staff can do other than work on the ARPA grant? Just a question. We don't have to make any decisions now, something to think about. That was the point of all my...
I don't think you'd do well in Las Vegas.
No. I'm a horrible, although I can keep a straight face. Anyway, yeah. But I'm just, my cards are open, right? So that's the point of that, all of that discussion on my end is I'm trying to
be realistic.
We'll be realistic and then utilize staff on things that have high probabilities of success.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion on that? All right. Now, back to my original. We're on the Mayor Council staff communication items, and we took care of our staff communication item. Is there anything council wants to mention that we haven't talked about tonight, and that we need to talk about tonight before we leave. I have a question for Stephanie. I meant to ask you this earlier today, but I walked by your office and you weren't in. The election validation on the 24th, that's next Tuesday, or the certification, do we have to do it that day, or could we do it on Wednesday?
I'm sorry, you do have to do it on the 24th. That's the last day by state law that we can
Okay.
canvass that, so.
I only asked because we have a meeting on that Wednesday.
I thought about that when I saw that other e-session. I was like, oh, I wish I could put them together, but I can't, so.
But the meeting on the 24th is really short.
It's like 5-minute meeting.
Yes, I anticipate it will not last any longer than 10 minutes at tops. I looked back at the previous year's canvas meetings. One of them was completed in 6 minutes, the other one was in 3, I believe. So it's really fast.
And is it something that needs to be in person?
You know, Rob, can you help me with that? I think I saw that one of them was done electronically.
What time are we doing it again?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. on Tuesday.
I most likely will have the Canvas certification that I will need signatures on, so it would probably be helpful if we could be here.
So, simple answer is yes, in person.
I would love to have
Because we have
you
to
all
sign
here.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And since I'm not going to have that paperwork beforehand, I'll need that night.
And just so I'm clear with this county-run process, there's no way for us to actually validate the results. It's just what they say they are.
We're trusting them.
I feel very confident in them, Brittany, but yes, in a nutshell, yes.
We don't have like extra information, or we just are validating whatever they added up.
Everything that they give to me, I will be passing on to you that afternoon as soon as I get it, or if it's too late that evening, you'll have it.
Yeah. And they do provide stuff online, like
More than that's on there.
Stephanie, when was the last update? from
no,
the
just the
county
election
on that
website,
deal?
but there's 2 links you can
It
click on,
was on the
turnout and
16th, so it was yesterday.
Oh, they did update?
They did update, and that's now on our city's website, it's updated as well.
Do you have any idea how many more updates they're going to have, or?
I would anticipate one more.
One more, maybe
Yeah.
by Friday.
They have said that they will
Monday.
do another one on the 23rd, the 23rd.
So that would be next Monday. The vote count, the total votes went up about 2,000. It was like 3,500, and it's now 30-something hundred, now it's 50-something hundred. The results are the same.
Yeah.
I put it in, I have a spreadsheet that I'm tracking this, so I put it in that. Surprise. Anything else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
So second.
So let's vote. All in
Yes.
favor?
Yay.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Hey, everything's unanimous tonight. Awesome.